Everybody ready? Good afternoon, everybody. It is Monday, March 6, 2023. This is a special budget workshop meeting of the Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach. We're in the City Hall Commissioners Room, second floor. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 2:02 p.m. With that, I'll start a roll call. Commissioner Tony Sharp.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
Here.
Commissioner Ed Stranowski.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Tim Bennett.
Here.
Commissioner Bunky Markert.
Here.
And Mayor Stan Mills. We have a full complement of the mayor and commissioners, so we have a quorum and are able to formally conduct business today. Thank you all for being here. We have a couple members of the audience, of the public here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for those at home that are watching virtually. A reminder that support documents, when they are available, are embedded into the agenda. Go to the city portal and seek out the meeting date, and you'll find that information. With that, there is some correspondence that was received late, and it will be embedded into the agenda after the fact. With that, we are here today for a special meeting to discuss the draft budget for fiscal year 2023-24, including capital improvement program as presented by the Assistant City Manager and the City Manager, to include but not limited to the items noted on the agenda, including the budget, review of departments, review of five-year capital improvement program, review the Canal Dock status, and review of all contribution requests. With that, we'll turn it over to the City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'll turn it over to Assistant City Manager Evan Miller in just a second. The comprehensive capital improvements project and remaining departments, I think this should close it out unless we need a follow-on meeting after this one. I like where the capital improvements project budget is going. There is room there to adjust it by year based off priorities. So if there's any feedback on moving some of those projects year to year, please let's talk about that one. That's a great opportunity to reprioritize as we move forward. Without anything further, I'll pass it over to Evan for a takeover.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, members of the public. I could start, if you'd like, just recapping some of the changes from our last meeting. Bear with me, I don't have all the page numbers written down, but first, under the Police Department, that's pages 14 and 15. We had a slight increase in the vehicle maintenance account, a slight decrease in the capital improvement projects. That's the cost of the vehicles. We had over budgeted there, so that number has come down slightly.
Are the numbers you're referencing the little numbers at the bottom of the page or the printout of the support document?
The small numbers at the bottom of the page of the PDF for the
Okay,
support
so
document.
you referenced page 14. That would be,
Yes.
start with the police, 501,000. Is that right? Okay, so that we can all follow along. Thank you.
So again, Police Department, page 14 and 15, we had a slight increase in the vehicle maintenance account. Again, this is all just looking at current expenditures. So a slight increase in vehicle maintenance, a decrease to the capital outlays for the replacement vehicles. That's 3 vehicles. We had a slight increase in other salaries, just based on year-to-date. And then also an increase in the maintenance contracts account. That increase is attributed to the Axon body-worn cameras, the maintenance agreement for those. In the dispatch, that's page 21. We had talked about some of these things at the last meeting. We had increased the overtime count slightly, had increased salaries. Salaries was flat from last FY, so that's actually gone up to reflect cost of living increase, as well as the addition of 2 new dispatchers. We are currently down 2 dispatchers. And also the maintenance contract account has gone up slightly. In the administration department, we have added $20,000 to the planning commission line, and that is to cover planning assistance through Wallace Montgomery. That's planning assistance directly to the planning commission.
Plus 20,
adminis-
plus
admin-
20,
Yes. Administration is on pages 8 and 9.
8 and 9. There you go there, Evan.
And that's for legal fees or?
That is for the planning assistance through Wallace Montgomery for the planning commission.
Is there any thought of breaking that out to reflect in the planning commission's segment itself?
So that actually is all that we have for the planning commission. We have the planning commission line, and then we have legal services for the planning commission. The planning commission does not have their own
I
department.
did talk that over with Bert as we were looking forward into the next year's budget. I asked them to identify all the expenditures by budget line and how that will go over, whether it goes into whether it's solicitor or planning. We identify that one and then break out a whole new budget line for the following year. That will give us at least an idea of what we should be budgeting for that one, because I think based off of what's coming in front of both the planning commission and the board of commissioners, that will be a significant, I'm guessing it will be significant overage for this fiscal year. So, but yes, that's definitely on our minds to do that one, but I want to have a starting point to be able to like break that out completely into a whole new budget line.
And suggest parallel that with Board of Adjustment.
And you're talking specialized, whether it's any type of organization, similar to Wallace Montgomery, or things of that nature.
Consulting fees.
Consulting fees.
Basically, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Next, in the mayor and commissioners account or department, that is page 6. We've added $15,000 to other professional services, again, to cover planning assistance through Wallace Montgomery. So right now, we are budgeting for Wallace Montgomery in the building and licensing department for assistance, their planning assistance. We've also, again, budgeted for expenses in the mayor and commissioners, as well as the planning commission, to capture any of those professional services from Wallace Montgomery.
Along that, if just looking down the line, would we be able to get, you've provided a legal update with regards to costs for legal aspects. For future, could we also get a breakdown of expenses for Wallace Montgomery by department?
Sure.
That's it.
Thank you.
There were also some changes to the capital improvement plan. So that CIP is on page 37, 38, and 39. And we will go through the capital improvement plan today, but line 1 is administration, so we've added in the office spaces in City Hall. FY '24 would be for the office space for the assistant city manager, and then FY '25 would be the additional office space upstairs on the 3rd floor of City Hall.
You said we can go through each one of these?
Yes, we will go through each one of those today. We've got a presentation for the commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
Also, a change to the capital improvement plan, line 29 is the storm sewer assessment and repairs that was decreased by $50,000. Line 32, that's the Grove Street curbing, costs have gone up slightly for that, so that new number is $48,000, that's an increase of $8,000. And then finally, in the wastewater department, that's page 38, line 66, sanitary sewer system cleaning, CCTV. We have deferred $100,000 to next, or FY '25. So we've taken $100,000 out of the upcoming fiscal year '24 and put that in FY '25. Next, just one thing I wanted to talk about was I did have a conversation with Bert about breaking out the Canal Dock into its own GL account. He had reservations about doing that. only because more accounts, more things to manage. Also within that account, there would be other expenses, whether it's maintenance contracts, capital outlays. So we will plan to budget for all of those expenses in the Parks and Recreation Department. So it is just incumbent on us to make sure that when we're tracking those expenses, that we put a description in there referencing it back to the Canal Dock so we can accurately pull all of those things. So again, he did have some reservations about creating its own account, but we will account for all of those things in Parks and Rec and be able to pull out expenses related to maintenance contracts, capital outlays, whatever that might be.
So Evan, can you just expand on that for a minute? I just want to make sure I got that correct. Was that a request from the commissioners?
Yes,
And Bert has denied it?
yes.
Thank you.
He's advising against it only because from what he had told me, I think the previous finance administrator had tended to create a lot of GL accounts for just maybe one-time expenses is a bad example, but would create GL accounts for many different types of expenses, and it became very difficult to track and manage that stuff. So again, he is recommending that we just budget for those expenditures for the Canal Dock and Parks and Recreation.
Well, I will say that not only do I find that a bit off-putting, but I don't have any intention anymore as a commissioner to chase information, to have to ask for information. I expect going forward, and if I'm alone in this, other commissioners, please weigh in. I don't intend to try to track things we said we would do here today to make sure they get done. Sure. I don't believe that's my role, and I will not accept that role. So I would hope that since this request has not been met, that it will be very easy, frequent, and proactive to tell us what's going on, instead of let's play the game of if the commissioners never ask about it again, we'll never have to do it. That's all I have to say about it. Please continue.
That was everything that I had in terms of changes from the last meeting.
Mayor,
Yes.
I was just going to suggest that because we have members of the public that are here for very specific topics, if we might do those first, out of respect of their time.
Well, we have members of Rehoboth Beach Main Street and the library here. It's the pleasure of the commissioners. I've said the previous meetings that my desire, at least at the previous meetings, was to get through the entirety of the budget before making any decisions on what levels of contributions I wanted to make to the four entities. But we can go whatever direction we want. What's the pleasure of the commissioners?
My suggestion was just to be respectful of
I agree.
the time of people that are in attendance, because
I agree.
we have no idea how long this meeting's going to go.
Is everybody fine with that? Okay, so Evan, if you don't mind, we'll pause on you and we'll go down to the contributions. This is another opportunity to discuss anything we want to talk about the contributions. Obviously, we've got on the agenda the four main agencies or organizations that we typically make contributions to: the Historical Society and Museum, Main Street, Volunteer Fire Department, and the Public Library. I think possibly reading some of the commissioners at previous meetings, they have the biggest concerns with the board, library. So if you like, we can start with that group. All righty. So why don't you come up and we will throw some questions to you. Again, I wanted to thank you all for being here. I'm going to have you introduce yourself again when I finish introducing you. so that those that are watching on tape can know who you are. And again, I want to appreciate you coming this morning, spending time with us, coming back this afternoon. As you know, there's been a great concern about your expansion or moving out of town, if you will, and I think by attending this morning, you helped clarify a lot. And so that was very, very good. I know that on some people's minds, particular people that wrote to us over the weekend, they were concerned and literally were saying, don't give a penny to the library until things are clarified. And for me, I think you helped clarify a lot this morning. But I do have a lingering question, and that would be for the $72,000 that you are requesting, which is the same amount as for last year. A lot of the constituents that have written to us have said they don't want you to have any money that helps the library move out of town. So is there any commitment you can make or statement you can make that helps us feel a little more comfortable that the monies, if we give it to you, is indeed going to stay in town to help operate this one and will not be used to engineer, design, or facilitate a greater exodus, if you will, or expansion out of town? And so start with introducing yourself again.
Once again, I'm Tucker Kochian. I'm the treasurer of the Board of Trustees.
And I'm Kay Wheatley, the Vice President of the Board of Trustees.
Okay, a couple quick things right up front. It's 75,000 and not 72,000.
Almost
The
say
same,
this-
the same amount we
almost
got
say-
this year. And I can very simply address the second part of your introduction, and that is, as far as using these funds for anything other than the library downtown, we commit that that will not happen. Now, let me get back to that point. We talked a little bit about the fact that we're an independent library. There are 14 libraries in Sussex County. 11 of them are independents. 3 of them are county. So all their expenses are covered by all their expenses are covered by the county. Not the case with us. In fact, we get right now from the state about 13.5% of our funds, from the county 50%, from the city 14%, and from the Friends 9.5%. That doesn't add up to 100, which means we've got to make up the rest somehow out of fees, fines, whatever. If you look at what has happened to our budget over the last 4 years, it has increased by 36%. Most of it personnel cost driven. Contrary to our increases of 36%, the state increased funding has gone up 6% in the same time period, the county 24%, and so you can see we're heading toward a major gap, and we knew that was coming. The reason for our significant increase, well, there's five actually categories of cost: personnel, business expenses, operations, collection material, and programs. Of those 5, only the personnel costs have increased over these years. Everything else has remained essentially constant. When we asked for the original increase from 15 to 30,000, that was 2 years ago, I guess, we said at that time that we were going to move from our own library wage scale to the county wage scale, because we thought that it was unfair that our people who were doing the same work as people in the same positions in county libraries, and so we wanted to get parity with the county wage scale. We made the decision to make that jump in 2 years because it's a significant increase in wage scale. So when we got past, and by the way, over those 2 years, it's also when we went through the COVID issue. So sometimes we were open, sometimes we were not. This latest increase, when we went to 75,000, we found that the county wage scale is not only higher than ours, but they made a decision to increase it by another 10 to 12% depending on level, and we were quite surprised by that. So there's a big bump that occurred. The first season of that bump, the first year of that bump, we were able to absorb some of it, but that's no longer the case. We can't absorb all of that. If we did not have the $75,000 funding from the city this fiscal year, which ends the end of June, we would have to pull out approximately $45,000 in savings to make the budget. Next year will get even worse. So if we don't get the city funding, we will now be talking about in the range of, I don't know, $80,000 we would have to pull out of our savings. And it's simply because the county scale increases typically year to year 1 to 2%. And 1 to 2% of our personnel costs amounts to that much money. So we will go deeper in the hole. When I say in the hole, I'm not saying we're losing money. What we're doing is we're making up the budget deficit with our own funds. If we don't get the city money, we have two choices: to continue to draw out of our savings, which we really don't want to do. It's kind of a rainy day kind of thing. Or we will have to go to an annual appeal to try to generate money from the community. We have not made a decision to do that yet because we know it's imminent that we're going to have to go out on a capital appeal. And so we're concerned about going to the community one part of the year with a operating fund appeal and then have a major capital appeal at the same time. So we've not chosen to do that. In fact, we're not even sure with an appeal we can make up that much of a deficit. So that's basically where we are with our budget and why the $75,000 is so important to us.
Can I add a couple things?
Yes.
Just to clarify, the capital campaign and the operating expenses are kept completely separate. That is how we can guarantee that none of the money that you would give would be used towards any capital expenditures. Design, construction, planning, nothing. It would not be used for that. It will be used strictly for operations of this location right across the street. Part of the reason that we had to increase to the county pay scale is because we were having trouble, and we still, to a degree, can have trouble, a lot of libraries are, with keeping personnel because we were paying so much less than the county and other businesses. So that's why we increased it up to the county level.
Just to add to that point, we have replaced in the past 3 years 4 of our 5 full-term positions. When we advertise for those positions, we get a lot of people calling in, but when they find out what the pay scale is, they say they're not interested. Most recently, we lost our library director.
To the county.
To the county. I don't know that it was wage-related because we're on the same scale, but she went to a job that she really wanted to go to. We advertised for that position and got 1 candidate, only 1. Fortunately, what we got is a very good candidate. We know her very well, and we think she'll be very successful, but it was very disappointing to me that we only got 1 candidate to apply for the position.
Very good. Thank you, Tucker. Thank you, Kay. Anybody? Commissioner Sharp?
I just have a curiosity about recruitment. I suspect many folks are having the same type of recruitment challenges. So I'm curious of what is the library doing differently or in addition to what you normally do to recruit?
I don't think that we've done anything in particularly differently. We have typically advertised for our positions in the Cape Gazette. We've advertised through this job network of library organizations.
It's a listserv of all
Right.
the library organizations.
And that's where we and other libraries typically go. It covers basically the Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland area. But we have found so far that people outside of Delaware or even outside of the immediate vicinity don't apply, really, they don't come into interview with the jobs because the pay is not high enough.
And again, can I add something? It's not just the pay that's not high enough. I don't know that any of us could get to the pay that's high enough. It becomes a workforce housing issue because people cannot afford to move here.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll go. Unless I'm having a really hard time wrapping my head around the fact that you're struggling making your operational budget now, and you expect us to think that it's not going to get worse expanding to another location, a much larger location, while having another a smaller location here. All of that's going to require more money, more staff. Can you help me
Yeah,
wrap my
yeah,
head
go ahead.
around how you guys
we
are
can.
strategically planning for this?
Yeah, part of it. The other things that will increase the state standards and the county formula where it's determined how much each library gets is based on a formula. Part with the state, 40% of it is based on population, 40% of it is based on local spend, 10% goes to a anchor library, and 10% the Delaware Division of Libraries maintain for use, which is how they support they give us all of our computers and internet and set up all that. So because of the increase in population and because of having 2 libraries and more local spend, we will get more money from the state. The county is based on the amount of circulation you do, the amount of programming you do, amount of computer usage. I can't remember what the 4th one is, but all of those things with having 2 locations should also increase. So our money from the county should also increase. In addition to that, because of expanding out into the area, into still our library service area, but out of the town of Rehoboth, the Friends have been very strong in helping us fundraise locally, meaning in town, okay? There is a whole segment of people that have not been tapped, for lack of a better way of putting it, that we would work to tap because the library would be more convenient for them and they could use it. We would hope that they could also supplement larger giving.
All right, thank you for that answer.
I think there's just another comment on the Friends aspect of it. We've talked to the Friends about the fact that they are going to need to expand out into the area. And I'm really hoping, Kim, that we'll be seeing contributions from the Friends, not down around the $45,000 level, but in the $150,000 level. The other thing is, I talked about appeals. We really have never done a very wide-ranging appeal for the library. We haven't needed to. We know we will need to. So we will be doing service area-wide appeals in the future when we're going to the new facility.
I guess, so my follow-up on that is, in 2021, we increased the city's give from 15 to 30, and then in 2022, from 30 to 75. Perhaps we too easily said yes, and that's why you haven't felt the need to go out and do an ask.
Well, we haven't gone out and done an appeal. The Friends Group has done a lot within the community. That's how they raise their funds, which then they donate to the library for use for collections, programming, different items that are all part of our budget. So it's not that the community isn't giving. to support the library. They are. We just need for that number to increase, and because we'll be able to better reach all the people within the library district, we're hoping that that number does increase.
Thank you.
Mr. Gossett, go ahead.
Have you done any type of, if you will, 5-year pro forma as to the funds that will need or expenses incurred? Because again, as Commissioner Sharnowski said, operating 2 physical plants, maybe even double your needs or greater. And then I hear you use the term should and hope and those types of things, which honestly don't give me a lot of security in that regards, and they probably don't you either. But I just you know, do we come back next year and you're asking for 150,000 because the shoulds and the hopes didn't happen? I just don't, there's a lack of confidence, I guess, in the sense of where we're going with this.
I think as far as a pro forma plan for the way we are currently structured now, the one large downtown facility, we can do that. Right now, we've only been forecasting a year out, but we will have to forecast our operating costs in order to be able to go out and campaign for money for a new facility, because everyone wants to be confident that when we get the new facilities, we can afford them. So we will be doing that. We've not had to in the past, and we've not had a plan until last week, but we will be doing that.
And if it's any consolation, the time between when I left the last meeting and came to this meeting, I made a note of all your comments and the things we needed to get back to you, and then I made a to-do list. And what you're talking about is one of the items on the to-do list, and we'll be more than happy to share that with you once we have it.
We also have an item on the to-do list to ask the mayor to appoint someone from the council to be a liaison with the library.
And one other question, and I don't want an answer to this specifically, but just, do you have a cost for the new building yet?
No.
Okay,
We do not.
thank you.
The cost for when we were looking at trying to renovate just down here, that cost was around 8 million, based on square footage, and the square footage that we're planning on adding, I know it's gonna be well over that, but I do not have a number yet.
Thank you.
And half of those funds will come from bond bill, and we already have 3 million, which is how we can pay for the design and some preliminary stuff for evaluating the new project and for renovating this.
So that's a phrase I hadn't heard before. You're going after a bond bill also for construction?
Yes.
Right. Bond bill is through the state. It's done through the Division of Libraries. We will make an ask probably in July. The head of that department within Division of Libraries will make a presentation to the Council of Libraries in August. We will make a presentation to them in September, and then they move it forward through the Secretary of State to the bond bill committee for the upcoming year. And it would be debated and passed in June, and the funds would be accessible in July.
And when, I think you mentioned earlier that 50% of your funding comes from the county?
No.
Currently, 50% of our operating income comes from the county. That's correct.
And have you had discussions with the county about also funding the new building or those operating funds there?
The county wants us to do this project because of the whole area that's not covered. And because of the formula they use, they know that funding number would go up. The county does not support capital projects at all,
Okay.
as far as libraries go.
No bricks and mortar, just operating.
Correct.
Thank you.
So I think what I just heard you say is the bond grant, which isn't guaranteed, but you're hoping to get, would cover 50% of the total construction costs?
That's correct.
So if it was 12 million, you could get 6?
Right.
Okay.
We already have like 3 or 4 million committed, and we would just need to up it.
And we have the 3 million ARPA funds, which are separate from that, so.
The 3 million, what funds?
ARPA.
ARPA.
Okay.
And is that part of the 3 or 4 million you just mentioned?
No,
So you got 6 to
Correct.
7 million out there?
correct.
Okay.
But that's all strictly capital.
So that's designated for capital, I think I heard you say, for capital expenses.
That the 3 million ARPA and the amount from bond bill is all designated for capital.
Okay,
They don't allow you to use any of it for
Yeah.
operating.
yeah. You're going to be building two new structures or two structures. What are your plans for Rehoboth again? Are you going to build a new structure? Are you going to tear down part of the existing library? How are you going to work that?
The only thing we can tell you at this point is we are going to retain what we were calling this morning Lot A, which is where the old Diamond State Telephone Building was. We're going to retain that. It will need some renovation, and we will expand it, I would assume, to its maximum. Once we find out from surveys of people who use the library downtown what they need, we'll begin to determine how much space we need downtown and whether or not we need to encroach on the next lot, and how much. And we haven't even started that plan yet.
I can see you you'll be juggling 73 balls in the air at one time. If you're working on how many acres out on the highway?
18,000 square feet building.
Okay, you'll be a building.
That's-
The acres is
that's-
5 acres.
Okay.
It's 5
that's an
acres,
acre
18,000
spot.
square feet, expandable up to 25 for some future board, years down the road. And then keep maintaining, we think, between 3,000 and 5,000 here. I have a meeting next week with the architect to help us define what those lines are and what is possible structurally and what is not. And then we can have better discussion and develop a plan forward. I would think that the capital campaign would put both projects together so we're not doing two different campaigns.
You don't know quite yet what you're going to do with Rehoboth. Maybe sell one, maybe sell two, maybe sell three of the lots.
No, we are not selling 3.
Okay. Okay, then I'll play 20 questions. Maybe selling one or two, and then first you're going to demolish the building.
We're not planning to demolish anything.
Oh, am I mixed up? How are you going? How are you going to build? You're not going to build another structure.
Okay. I'm not an architect, so I can't say this
That-
for sure.
Downtown, we know for sure that we are going to renovate the structure on Lot A, or was it number 76 that we were talking about this morning?
furthest
The
east.
Diamond State.
One that the city conveyed to the
Yes,
library.
that is
Yes.
the one next to,
It's
next to
adjacent to Summer House.
yeah. And tell me again what you think you might do with the other two?
All we know, as far as the other two are concerned, is if through our surveys and understanding the needs of the people who use the library downtown, we need more space, then we'll look at the next lot to see how we can get what we need. I don't see any reason why we would get to the third lot.
Okay.
Can I try to paint a visual picture?
Yes, please do that, because I'm having a hard time understanding how you're going to tear the existing building down or tear part of it
No,
down.
we're not planning to tear it down. And like I said, I'm not an architect. But part of the reason that we're meeting with an architectural and engineering firm, if you're standing on Rehoboth Avenue facing the building, and just block off 3,000 to 5,000 square feet, depending on where that is, there would be a wall on the interior down to do that, kind of like a condo or a townhouse, there would be a common wall. There would need to be a new entrance, maintaining the existing entrance in the elevator, but a new entrance where a window is closer to Summer House. There's already a back door, so it gives you
Yeah,
ingress
I've
and
been there
egress
many
both
times.
both sides.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we're gonna sit down with the architect and say, look, here's the existing building. Now, what if we needed 4,000 square feet? How would we do it? What if we needed 5,000 square feet, which is the size of the lot? How would we do it? What if we needed 6,000 feet? How would we do it? But our intent has never been to tear down any buildings.
And then the rest of the building will be used for,
We could lease it, we could sell it, whatever, we don't know.
not for a library.
Not
but
for a
something
library.
else.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Mayor, I really do emphasize that we need to get a task force and not just someone who attends their trustee meetings from the city and together go forward. And I think we should encumber that 75,000 and make sure that we have some say in the way that's going to be spent. I know they have aspirations.
Well, keep in
Well, I
mind,
can tell you exactly where it's gonna be spent. It's gonna be spent for salaries of our people in the downtown facility,
Okay.
period.
period.
We could put that in writing or something.
And
Man, I'll sign it in blood if you want, but that's where it's gonna be used.
yeah. And to just, on my to-do list that I talked about in between the two meetings, there is to ask for a liaison from one of the commissioners to attend our board meetings, but then also is the development of a task force that can be a part of the design and what's happening.
Yes. I would, Mayor, before I want to go forward with this, I'd like to have the task force appointed or at least in concept, and have Alex Burns on that task force. And encumber that 75,000, and it doesn't seem like that would be a problem at all, because we've had Tom's promise that would work, so he would be able to deal with that.
You can stipulate that that money is strictly for salaries.
Fine,
That
That's
should be
fine.
easy then.
that's fine. And stipulate that we will be in lot one. I mean, we're driving a stake in the ground on that as well. What we don't know is how much of the additional facility we need.
And keep in mind, this 75,000 that we're asking for is for July of 2023 to June of 2024. Nothing is going to happen with this building in that timeframe.
That's great. Then we shouldn't have a problem with getting us working together then
Right.
and keeping track of that money. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. If you don't mind, we'll go to the members of the public and then we'll come back to us. You all can stay there. Does anybody want to say anything in support of the library? Well, I mean, we've gotten a lot of correspondence, and including from Lorraine. Lorraine, come to the front microphone there and remind us who you are.
Really? Lorraine Sellers, 308 Stokely Street in Rehoboth. In view of their earlier presentation and the questions that they answered and the promises that were given, and because we still need to have a library in town, it's going to be here in town, I would be comfortable if you would approve their request for the $75,000 for this year.
Thank you.
And because it's our library and we need it to be maintained, we want it to be we want to have quality materials and people. And but going forward, we're going to hold you to everything you've said.
Not a problem.
Go
No,
for it.
seriously, I love the idea of the task force. There's still questions that, I have, but hopefully that'll be resolved as we move forward. I'm gratified that whatever money that the city gives is going to stay in the city and for the city library. Is there ever a consideration that you would there be two separate libraries? One in the city, I thought of this afterwards, and one in the county to do that other service area. Would the library system ever?
I mean, that's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah, but still there.
I mean, the accounting and everything will
what-
need
You know
to
what I
be
mean?
kept
A
separate.
city library and a county library.
What advantage would you see in that? And the reason I ask the question is because one of the reasons why we like having the two together is the larger library outside of town during the summer months could help with its personnel to support any increase in demands downtown because of the tourists, and the other way around. If there's people going, in the
Okay.
winter months downtown, when you don't need as much staff, maybe we could move some out there to cover it. I don't know.
I guess I was considering fundraising for the Friends and those kinds of things. And
It would be good for the Friends to look at that and see if they think that at least splitting the Friends up and have one outside of
there's a-
downtown and one inside, I don't know.
But at any rate, I would be comfortable, and I would say, can we approve it for this
Thank
year?
you. Thank you, Lorraine. Anybody else?
I had a question for Lorraine, if I may. Regarding the Friends Group, I mean, you were once the president, or you still, or you? I'm on the board. Right, okay. But I was just curious,
Lorraine, stand in front of them.
Okay.
There you go.
but the relationship with the Friends Group and the board of the, is somewhat separate, is it not? But I was just curious as to the level of direction with regard to, or level of fundraising. I mean, I assume you work somewhat autonomously and raise funds. Are you directed with like sort of a budget or how that works?
Actually, by our, bylaws, and Kim, you can correct me if if I misspeak, but
Okay,
the money that we raise is for the collections, for the books, for the programming needs that they have. So the new things that the library gets, correct,
Okay.
is what the Friends raise money for.
okay,
So all of our fundraising, activities are for that port. They're things that the library Allison might not have been able to do without us. Like this year, we gave them $50,000 from the
Okay.
Friends.
all right.
So that was to promote their programs and things like that.
Okay. Well, so my question is, do you anticipate in this relationship changing at all with regard to the fact that you're going to, or are you committed to or not necessarily committed to capital campaign raising, or are there any separation between the potential new facility versus the current facility? Or
I can't speak for the board, but that wasn't my understanding. We were
Traditional-
thinking of that. We were going to continue the way we have been. Kim is our vice president. This is Kim's.
Okay, hi,
I'm the
yeah.
vice president of the Friends. We have not had any discussions with the trustees about raising money for the capital campaign.
Okay,
So far, our focus has been to raise money for the collections, for books, materials. The head librarian makes a request to us each year for how much money she would like, he would like, whoever.
It's kind of a wish list.
A wish list, and then we decide whether we want to fund that, whether we have the ability to fund that. Since I've been involved with the Friends since 2019, we have always granted the request as it's come in, but that doesn't mean it always will happen that way. As if there ends up being a second location for the library, then the Friends will have to discuss how we can increase our fundraising. I anticipate that we would be able to bring in more friends since a broader area, we'd be able to reach people in a broader area. But we've not had any conversations about whether we would break it into groups or anything like that. At this point, we have not.
And to also,
Go ahead, Kay.
to also address your question, traditionally, the Friends groups donate for operations only. They are not involved in a capital campaign.
right, okay.
One
but-
exception that I know of with that was the Seaford Library. They did a separate fundraiser just because they wanted a naming opportunity within the building. Their funds went strictly for that. Otherwise, the Friends groups fundraise for operations,
Okay.
past, present, and future.
Right, but within operations, you spoke before about the city money and, earmarked strictly for salaries. I mean, is that, are they earmarked for operating but not
Collections
salaries?
and programming and materials,
Okay,
that type of
but,
stuff.
I mean, I know funds are fungible, I understand how that works, but I'm just saying, like, that's like more or less your focus, and we're the focus, I guess, for salaries or whatever, okay.
The way it's worked out is the Friends money has, I think, completely funded collections and programs.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's not necessarily, you don't put a hard restriction on that or anything, I mean, it goes into the pot and, yeah,
You're right, it's fungible, but
yeah,
the
right,
fact of the matter is, when we talking about the $75,000 we're asking from you again, the reason for it is the personnel cost.
personnel issues, okay. Well, it just gives me a better sense of kind of the lay of the
I just wanted to add
fundraising
one
land,
additional
you know.
thing, if I could, that currently, we have fewer than 200 household members, right, in the Friends? primarily in the downtown area, not exclusively. So I can foresee that with the new library, we would definitely be able to expand our membership quite a bit, bring in more money. So I would speak in favor of the 75,000 as well.
When were you first made aware of the move? Lorraine, when were you first made it?
We knew that there were discussions going forward. As of our last meeting in February, we did not know the resolution had been passed or any of that.
Right.
Thank you.
Same thing. We knew that there had been discussions. I had been to some of the trustees' meetings. We usually have a member of the Friends Board attend. We knew that they were looking at different options, that there'd been a needs assessment, that there'd been a survey, that they were looking at the possibility of possibly building a second location. But it was only just recently that we found out that they had actually made a decision.
We didn't know
Thank-
that
thank
until
you.
last Thursday, right before noon.
And I don't want you to leave with the impression that the Friends Group and the library board operate separately. We have a Friends representative at every one of our board meetings where we discuss this and other things, and we have at least the library director at the Friends meeting. So there's communications, and I'm going to go there Wednesday. Tomorrow. Oh, is it tomorrow? Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow just to update them on everything.
Right.
Oh, I'm mighty glad of that. The funding for the Rehoboth section of the whatever you do will come from any of that from the state?
Yes.
I'm
For
tangled
capital.
up on how much
For
of the state.
capital.
Any capital expenditures we make, the state will pay for half of it. Whether it's renovating of the downtown facility or it's building a new facility out of town, the state will pay for half of it. As long as we've done our needs assessment, we can prove that it's needed, they will pay for half of it.
All right.
Mayor, I would like to sort of put an end to this, and I would like to recap my thoughts and help move this along to an ending. Related to the expansion, I definitely have some disappointments. I've had a lot of questions, and I think all of us will want to stay on top of this very closely. Related to my concerns, they've been very much alleviated with your guarantees and comments today. And I think those have also relieved the concerns of a lot of the constituents that I've heard from. With that being said, and this 75 just being an annual operating expense, I am inclined to go ahead and grant that, as you will be continuing to operate in a downtown Rehoboth at the same capacity for at least next few years. And I concur with Ms. Zellers in the statement she made. So I'm inclined to go ahead and stay the course for this year.
And Commissioner Stranowski, I think you said that very well, and I would agree with you. My comments would mimic him. You're asking for 75,000. That's the same amount you asked for last year. Again, I do feel relief and more satisfied having you come this morning and having this conversation now, and would be glad to support it. We can have conditions, certainly, but normally when we do this process, we come in, we talk about donations or any of the projects that we're talking about, and we come up with some figure to put in the agenda. And normally, when it's presented to us on our voting meeting, we just vote for the whole thing in entirety. I can break things out if there was a feeling. I could break things out, and we can vote on these four separately before we vote on the whole budget. It would certainly be easier if we came to consensus and voted all at the same time for everything, and that's my hope anyhow. Anybody else?
I will vote separately, and I will vote no on the library unless we can get an agreement put together. And it sounded like the treasurers felt like that could be possible.
Well, the agreement I heard of is that they want a liaison to the city assigned, a task force assigned, and then they're willing to encumber the $75,000 strictly for salaries.
That's correct.
All right.
I'll vote yes if that's the legal stance going
All right.
forward.
Thank you very much. Anybody else up here? If not, I'm going to close the discussion. Thank you.
May I just
more?
add one
No,
thing?
Don't blow it.
I'm not planning on it.
Don't
And
say the wrong thing.
I genuinely don't mean this as an excuse. I just mean it as trying to give you more information. We have not intentionally hid any plans from anybody. We were limited through negotiations with the LOI about what we could say. We literally got that signed last Thursday, just before noon, okay? So it was only after that, in fact, my first call was to Chris Flood to try to rectify that. Moving forward, we no longer have those restrictions. We want the city, we want the Friends, we want anybody in the community to be a part of this whole discussion, no matter where you're talking about. Okay? So that that'll be part of the plan going forward, whether this had all occurred or not.
Right. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all can go home early if you like.
Thank you.
Mayor, I just want to put my
Yes.
final thought on the record.
For the library?
For the library.
Okay.
I am less enthusiastic than some of the other comments. However, I think there should have been more realization from the library individuals who have come and spoken to us of taking more accountability, that at best, communications have been substandard. And I heard you, Kay, for like the fourth time, reiterating that you were unable to speak about things. I got that the first time you said it. But I think if you really are committed to having a better relationship with the city, that you will work more in tandem to regain, for people like myself who are less than enthusiastic at the moment. But I will support it for this 1 year, and I will still be on this board next year. So
We'll be back.
I have no doubt you'll be back.
I accept your criticism of the communication. It's not the way we wanted to do it, but quite honestly, we didn't know we had the property until Thursday.
you're
No,
doing
let
it-
me
you're
finish.
doing it
Let me finish.
again.
Let me finish. We didn't have the property. If we were not able to get that property, we didn't know where else we could go. And our fallback position was build out downtown. Now, we wrestle with, so we communicate something today, and then next week come back and say, whoops, that's not our plan anymore. We would get the same criticism for you for that. But we came out with the communication as soon as we knew what the plan was. That's all I can tell you. And I'm sorry you feel bad about it, but
I am not asking for feedback, nor am I asking for further debate. And you've told me everything I need to know. So thank you very much. And Mayor,
Thank
you
you.
can move us along.
Thank you, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker. With that, is there any desire to talk any further about the contributions solicited by the Historical Society, Main Street, or the Volunteer Fire Company? I'm fine with just leaving it as is and including all four in the budget as we discussed earlier.
I
Can I
agree.
just raise one question? And this is just a general question, not specific. But pertaining to the fire department, and I'm curious if, for the organizations that we're dealing with, I think some have like a greater importance, and maybe that's a bad choice of words, but I would certainly put the fire department at the top of the list in terms of importance to the services they provide to the city. And I'm wondering if in the past or potentially in the future, we could address them in a different way, where the monies that we intend, that, you know, the services they provide and how we value those services, how we can go through this process without them having to kind of come to us, you know, you know, in the manner that they do. That maybe we have sort of a prearranged level of what we're looking at, and they can offer that. They wouldn't have to go through the same process. And I don't know if that makes things way more complicated, but I just feel like, you know, it shouldn't be a level of begging, you know, for lack of a better term, you know, and I just want to be, if there was a way for us to formalize that process so that going into the budget things, we have a general idea of what we're looking at, and we don't have to kind of go through that sort of level.
Well, Bunky, I think every agency that comes in front of us has to go through a certain process.
Right,
they give
and I'm
us
not saying that they're
P&L
avoiding a
statements and
process.
all that
I
stuff.
just merely say that we have a better understanding ahead of time of what their needs are, you know, what we think our level is and so forth, that we could possibly sort of pre-approve, not I want to say pre-approve, but like just have like sort of prior knowledge in advance of the budget, that we would have a better idea of what we're looking at.
Well, interestingly, we've kind of done that, but over the years.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
Patrick
and I'm just wondering,
ask for $60,000 a year plus something else, like 60,000 plus 4 oxygen containers or something. And then several years ago, we explained this at the last meeting, I think. Evan and I and Sharon met with Warren McDonald of the fire department and upped it to, we got the commissioners to agree to $100,000 a year. And then, you know, once you ask for more and get more, what do? You ask for even more. So now it's where 150,000, and who knows where it'll be in another year or something, you know? But I mean, you're right. They provide a very, very vital service to the town, and
right,
they
well, I guess the thing that sort of drew my attention to it was the whole notion of like when they spoke about wanting to have like lists of our addresses of the people so they can make a personal appeal. And I'm just saying, like, why wouldn't the city provide, why wouldn't the city basically be the vehicle in which the residents of the city would be contributing to them? You know, so, you know, if they're agreeable to supporting it, are they not agreeable to individually contribute because they already give as far as the city does? I mean, I don't know if people really conceive it in those terms, but I'm just thinking, it just seems like kind of a inefficient process in order to be able to fund a critical need.
I think maybe the appropriate time to bring that up is Patrick in the near future, we're going to put on the agenda. Patrick wants to try to formalize a contribution policy.
I think
And
that would be
a good
great.
time
I think that
for
would
you
be
to
great.
bring up that and
Yeah.
have discussion
Okay.
among that.
Mayor, there is one thing that we have to, that's unresolved, I think, with the fire department, is they've asked for $100,000 as part of their operating budget, but which is included in this budget that the city manager has provided. But they also asked for $50,000 as a capital contribution to the ladder truck, which is not included in this budget. Is that correct?
Actually, the full 150,000 is currently budgeted. Contributions are on page 29. Fire company donations is account 550110.
Am I looking at the wrong?
Look up on your screen there. See right here. FY 2024.
Yeah, no, I see that, but I was looking at the spreadsheet. Page 40, I guess, I was looking at.
No, this is the in-kind and direct donations,
But it's only reflective of 100 there.
100,000.
Yes, that is incorrect.
Okay, so it just needs to be changed there. Sorry,
Yes.
I was,
And as long as we're there, if you have provided under Historical Society the rent value for the building, if we're going to do that as in-kind, could we also do that with the Main Street building?
yeah, I think someone asked for that to be done at the last meeting.
I thought you asked for chamber building.
No, we own the chamber building, we rent that, so we're getting revenue on
Yeah,
that.
but I thought you wanted the chamber listed just for comparison purposes.
Could have been Commissioner Sharp, I believe. I don't know.
I
was just
had
interested
talked
in
about the fair market value of it versus what we're getting from the chamber.
But in any event, I'm supportive of funding all 4 organizations at the level that they've asked for, if we're trying to bring this to a conclusion or consensus.
All righty, so that's last on the agenda. If only, huh? So we'll return to conversation with Evan, if you want to continue. You were reviewing all departments. And were you ready to start the 5-year capital improvement program?
Sure, Mayor, so I will make sure that we include the Main Street rent value at the next meeting. If you'd like, we could go into the Canal Dock before we go into the other departments, the capital outlays. We do have a presentation for the capital outlays, but we can take it in whatever order you
Yeah,
prefer.
Canal Dock would be fine. I'd like to preface it with, a reminder to all the commissioners that I made a presentation in front of the commissioners maybe a year ago, that I joined with the mayors of Lewis, Henlopen Acres, and Dewey Beach about a year ago, lobbying for funding from our congressional representatives to dredge the entirety of the canal. Senator Carper and others came through with that and did provide funding. And the way that funding was distributed was through 2 grant requests by the Department of Natural Resources to fund dredging of the canal. They got a little at the beginning, and the Lewis Canal is expected to start dredging maybe in October of this year, October-ish. But only from Roosevelt Inlet to King Street Bridge or something, very, very short percentage of the totality of the canal. And then I attended another meeting with those same mayors last week, and also with Department of Natural Resources and the Army Corps of Engineers there. And we were going there, the 4 mayors, to lobby for additional funds to see how we could get it. When we show up there and poof, the money's already been allocated through Senator Carper's federal funding. So there is enough, they say that there is enough money to dredge the entirety of the canal to a 50-foot width, which is the width of the federal channel, by 7 foot deep. The design template's 50 feet wide by 6 foot deep, and they're aiming for 7 foot deep. Now, the funding is there provided that some of the areas they're looking at to dump the dredged materials pans out. You know, you've got to get permits, you've got to get, you want a close location. And so the funds would run out if they had to truck it a certain distance or whatever. So that's good news. I just wanted to share that with you as we approached continued discussion about the Canal Dock, because it looks like it'll be a reality, but probably not for a year and a half to even 2 years, because the permitting process, the soil testing process and all that takes minimum of a year, but probably more. So that's good news I wanted to share with you. Evan, go ahead.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Just briefly on the Canal Dock, in terms of some of the statistics that we received from Cape Water Tours most recently. So they did offer the water taxi service on Friday evenings, which were round trips from Lewis, and also offered the Rehoboth Bay evening cruise on the evenings that they were in Rehoboth for the water taxi service. So the water taxi serviced 297 guests on 14 departures. The Rehoboth Bay evening cruise that left from the Grove Park Canal Dock served 525 guests, also on 14 departures. They also offered a Rehoboth Bay Oyster Experience, which was a narrated eco tour leaving from the Grove Park Canal Dock. That served 46 guests on 2 departures. Dave Green mentioned that they're still planning their 2023 season and should have it finalized by the time their office reopens in April. They mentioned that last year it was helpful for them to get an idea of the flow and logistics of operating to and from the Grove Park Canal Dock. So those are just some statistics I wanted to share with you that we did receive from Cape Water Tours. Certainly, if there are any questions from the commissioners, I'll jot those questions down and follow up with Dave Green. Also provided in the agenda is a support document, which is the updated summary of funds. At the last meeting, I was asked to go back and try and identify some of the other costs incurred related to the canal dock aside from just the construction. So in the bottom right-hand corner, there are the other services that have been identified. So we did work with Landscape Architecture Services on design that took place from July 2018 through December of 2019. Those costs were paid by the city at a total of $111,828. The city did pay for signage. The signage came as a recommendation from our insurance provider. That's a cost of $306. We did incur some legal expenses related to drafting the MOU. We had a warranty that was good for the first year, so we did some work with Glenn in terms of drafting a letter to address some of the deficient items in the warranty. And then certainly we had the 2 agreements that were drafted, one for Cape Water Tours, the other for Quest Kayaks. Total cost $3,519. Also, we had the extra fence that was installed, paid by the city, that again extended the fence from just behind the museum further north near Grove Park. That cost was $2,625. And then LRCIA had covered the cost of the construction administration through the construction of the Grove Park Canal Dock. Total cost $79,200. Summarizing all of the other services that were paid by the city, that's $118,278, which put the total cost at $1,359,921.
Where are you? Is that,
That's in the support document titled GPCA Dock Summary of Funds.
it's not part of our support package?
It should be in there.
What page?
Yeah, it's, let me go back to the agenda. So it's under the agenda. It's not within budget meeting number 4, but it's a support document included under item 4C.
Of the budget?
No, of the agenda. Yeah, right there.
Of the
4C.
Oh, right there. Okay, got you.
Evan, did you say 111,000 for some line item? I don't have it in front of me.
Yes.
And I can't see it at the
That's
moment.
$111,828 for the design. If
For
you
the
scroll
design.
down, yeah. If you scroll down a little bit, Mayor. Yeah, there.
So this finally perhaps is a complete package then. We've added the legal expenses and all that stuff. Very good. Thanks for putting that together.
Question, under that extra fencing, I know we had to add lighting and security cameras. Is that part of that package?
That was in here. That was within the actual change orders that we saw. I'd have to look at which one exactly, but.
Great, thank you.
And I'm just going to say on record again, any legal expenses, I personally believe that were billed to us for the memo of understanding that seems to not hold any water whatsoever. I think those should be credited back to the city. It's the principle, not the dollar amount.
I don't know if this is an appropriate question at this point in time, but I know we had reached out, or there was discussion of, through Commissioner Sharp, I believe, of consideration for review and management plan of the dock by Main Street. Has there been any movement on that?
Mayor, you've mostly been having correspondence with that, correct?
Say that again.
Just as, I don't know if there, I know there was discussion about Main Street taking on the task of developing a management or
Oh, yes, yes.
review plan for the dock. Is that
Yes,
progressing?
I think I sent out a note to everybody or copied everybody that I had reached out to Main Street on behalf of the commissioners, asking them to consider doing an analysis of economic development. I did get a response back, and so I want to contact, probably start with Tony, because it was her idea, and schedule a meeting possibly with her and Commissioner Bennett to be able to connect them all together so they can figure out and write down what the objectives are, so we have clear objectives written down, and move forward from there. And they understand, I believe from their response, that, it could be a multi-month process, so. Okay?
That's Sussex County time. We can press on that. I say that in the most kind and tactful way.
Is there, I know we got a general update on the expenses of the Canal Dock, but is there something that we need to decide on related to this fiscal year budget?
No,
Did we
the
have- did
the
we
only
have to-
thing I had put forward was the kayak launch, and we
It's the
decided.
budget that we're currently talking about, yeah.
Thought we had to approve maintenance or something,
No,
or upkeep.
the LCIR had already provided 2 years of maintenance, right?
$8,000, right.
Well, and I liken it to that wonderful presentation I thought Corey gave us on the bandstand. And I was thinking as he came to the photographs of what 20 years of wind and salt and weather can do to our bandstand, my bigger concern for the dock is in 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, what kind of expenditures might we be looking at? Because we already know we've got issues with the bandstand. To me, you could just plug in the Canal Dock, but that's for other discussions, other days. So the bottom line is it's certainly not maintenance-free to the level that we've got it now, which is some landscaping and some other things because it's relatively new.
Evan, did they say whether they were going to continue service out of there, the water taxi?
That's the intent, yes. Whether it's more frequent, I don't know yet, but certainly, once we have a 2023 schedule, I can ask Dave to provide that once it's available.
Thank you.
You want to,
Is
you
it-
want to control it.
We have questions about departmental questions still, or are we going to go into CIP?
Evan, where are we headed next?
We're ready to take on the capital outlays if there's any other
I just
department-specific
had some
questions.
kind of questions, and about departments we had talked about, but I don't know if there's any resolution on them. One of the things I know has been brought forward to us is about code enforcement, and is there additional staffing or anything mentioned of building and licensing for that with regards to staffing or a plan going forward on how to manage that?
Well, and for me specifically, weekend and nighttime enforcement would be very
That's
important.
what I asked.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if we're addressing that, or I don't believe there's been an increase in salary staffing in that area, but
Commissioner, we did look at that one. Within the administration function, and I think I alluded to this at least one other time, once the project within the building and licensing kind of starts taking shape over the coming weeks to months, that will really kind of pan out where we're going on this. I think there needs to be a full assessment, recognizing what the mayor has said and what a few other commissioners have said also. There needs to be a little more targeted enforcement, some focal points, but I think running right now and adding positions might be premature. I want to get in there and really pull this back and really kind of figure out where we're at. I think there may be some realignment of duties, maybe an opportunity to see ourselves a little better within that particular department to move forward. But we have not directed any specific additions within that department, but I have kind of put a little bit of a reserve within the administration in the contingency fund that I plan to use to potentially fund some of those things that we know we're going to need. We just don't know where.
Well, hopefully Evan's told you, and I think, Patrick, you would agree with me that, you know, our restaurateurs and business people are pretty smart. They know exactly what days and hours we're working and not working, and when the noise could go up and down, and they can put the chairs out there on the sidewalk and bring them back in. So enforcement, I think, is very important. Go ahead, you had some
Just
more
a couple
things?
other areas I know we had spoken about, and again, maybe there's a resolution on them, but I just not closing the loop here on under communications. We talked about new software, survey software that's going to be indoctrinated or used in the coming year, and also a website refresh is in the budget to happen.
Yes, both of those. Yes, Commissioner, both of those items are in the budget.
Great.
Can I just interject something there? We had a, I've said this before, we had $5,000 in last year's budget for an engagement tool, and it was never done, and the money was never spent. So I realize it's in the budget for, I think the name of it is Engagement HQ, is the software.
That was yes.
So my question is about, do we have a timeline for implementation? And how will we go about determining what we want to engage our community on? Because I think it's a perfect vehicle to gauge the sentiment of folks on things like contributions that we give, which are their tax-paying dollars, and many other things. So you don't have to answer it today. I'm just very curious as we move on. This is another subject. I do not want to chase this thing. I know that you'll be proactively letting us know when things that are budgeted are actually going to lift off, so to speak. Thank you.
And I'll just,
I'm sorry, I interrupted Patrick, but go ahead.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to reiterate Commissioner Sharp's, and I think what I mentioned when Lynn gave her presentation, I want to see examples and know exactly what tools are in this engagement before we actually write a check or sign a contract with a company that's going to do this.
Sure.
And just a couple other things, and again, these are just to bring it forward that they may have been realized, and I just overlooked it or whatever, but in the streets department, we had a conversation about the big belly trash cans that they're leased, and there was a possibility to end that lease. That'd be a great savings, because what we thought they would provide us, they're really not providing us. And then also discussion of, are we going to continue the recycling on the boardwalk, or start it or end it or what have you? I know we've been having some challenges with that. Also in the IT department, we've talked about the rental tax software, if that's some issue that we can deal with on that or not. I don't know if we have discussed any further or the need for a parks management plan. We've reviewed that. We talked about a parking study. We also, to confirm, we're doing a classification and compensation study. That's great. And staffing with regards to, other than the dispatchers, and I think you mentioned an additional part-time clerk in the alderman's office, is that all that we need for additional staffing at this point in time that you're aware of?
To be blunt, I don't know yet.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I got to pull back. I mean, everything you just articulated, if you think about that one and elongate it longitudinally across the timeline for the next year, the plate is rather full. I mean, I have concerns about the number of capital projects that we're getting ready to brief you, that we even have the bandwidth and the depth to be able to accomplish all this. I have serious concerns, but yes.
I appreciate that. That's why I just don't want to get this lost in, discussion or whatever, that these are important issues that I think we need to bring forward. And again, I don't want to get into the weeds on these, but I think they're issues of staff discussion and application or not, that you can report back to us on the results, if any. Thank you.
Well, I think that's fine. While we're at it, is there any other individual comments? Be made by the commissioners? And
Something that can't be made during the year, I want to hear Kevin.
well, then you make me feel bad offering thing. My one spiel to the city manager, both city managers is my mention almost on an annual basis about maintenance. To me, one of the biggest components of what we need to do is maintain things, including new projects have to have a maintenance program. And I guess the biggest thing for me is that Rehoboth Avenue. You know, I did a slide presentation the first year Sharon was here, so that's 8 years ago, and there's really nothing that's changed in those 8 years on Rehoboth Avenue in terms of the street, tree wells needing maintenance and streets having problems and the sidewalks buckling because of tree roots and things like that. So hopefully in our next year's budget, we'll start to pay more attention to that and have a program. Just Rehoboth Avenue is going to be a multi-year program to be able to fix it, you know, but we need to start. So that's my spiel. Anybody else? Well, then Jay, repeat what you said. We want to go right to Evan. Okay.
Kevin, I thought we were going to
Yeah.
hear
you can go right to
Evan or
Kevin.
Evan?
It's a tag.
Even, either or. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So we've prepared a PowerPoint, I think as we've done pretty much every year, at least that I've been here. This just goes through each department, the capital outlays that we have. Again, every year we do a 5-year capital improvement plan. The presentation that we've prepared for you today just basically identifies all of our capital outlays, our capital projects for upcoming FY24. We have them broken out by department. We will talk briefly to them. We'll also show some photos to document those. So the first is within the administration department.
Evan, do they follow this
do.
chart
They
in
do.
sequence? there?
Yes.
So we can
Yep.
review this at the same time?
Absolutely.
And be able to comment.
So what the mayor had just held up was, again, in the FY24 budget meeting number 4 document, towards the end, it begins on page 37, is our 5-year capital improvement plan. Also included within the agenda under item 4B is a capital budget items presentation. So this presentation will track with every capital outlay that you see in the 2024 column of that 5-year CIP. So the first is, I had mentioned this earlier at the start of the meeting, in administration. This is office space in City Hall. This would be an office space for the Assistant City Manager. For those of you who are familiar with the first floor, we have a copy room, work area. As you come in through the doors from the front of City Hall, immediately to the left is that copy area. Let me try and orient. So on the right-hand side of the screen, again, that's where you come in, the vestibule area. Off to the left is, right now, it's labeled office, but it exists as a conference room. So we did meet with EDIS, and one of the quick remedies that we thought to create this office space would be to convert that existing conference room to an office, and then convert the copy room to a conference room. And then the copy area would move down the hall, in the hallway there, towards the back of the building. So that is what we have proposed right now for the first floor layout.
And that's the $80,000 figure?
Correct.
And would you mind, as we go through these, to perhaps tell us about the next year
Sure.
budget, the 395, what is that intended for?
Yes, we don't have slides on these, but 395, that would be, we have talked, I think previously at a previous budget meeting about third floor of City Hall. Currently, right now, you'll recall that we've had for a couple years, third floor fit out in the capital improvement plan. That is existing space on the third floor that had not been converted to office space. It was just vacant. It was used for storage. There's 2 locations up there now. One of those locations has slowly been converted to a work area. We've had interns that have worked up there. We now have our facilities manager who works out of there. So we've slowly converted at least one of those spaces. So what we have proposed in FY '25 would be the conversion of both of those spaces. We don't have images in the presentation, and Kevin can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the one location where our facilities manager is now would have 2 offices and a conference room. And then there's a separate location on the police side on the 3rd floor that would have 1 office location and then sort of a common area that could be built out for future use. But for FY '24, this is just all that we have proposed at this time.
And if you notice, the cost is significantly higher than we had anticipated before. And so that kind of gave us pause on a lot of things. It's a difficult thing to try and swallow that much in a project, in a building where it's already been built for several years. That does the immediacy need of handling the assistant city manager's office. And I'm torn with about also spending that much money for going on the 3rd floor, $395,000 for 2 separate locations, in an already very full capital projects. So just listen to some feedback here on this one. Really interested.
I think that, having an office in that area, I think it's necessary to get the assistant city manager on the same level as us, rather than putting him up on the 3rd floor. So,
For a quick immediate fix, I had Max fob put all access for all your fobs to use that conference area right next to the communications. So, the same time that all the city employees have it, you have access to all of that back there. So if you need to have a quick conference out of the eyes, that's a quick, not long-term fix, but just something that we can do right now. And if there's other areas that you may think of as better.
My fob turned green, but the door didn't open. So just saying.
Didn't?
Yeah.
Bob turned.
Can I ask what time it was?
It was, I went to go see Len at 2 in the afternoon on yeah. No, just as an FYI, in case people.
No, that's the feedback I have to have. If I don't have that one, I can't. So.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, have you thought about, do we really need that conference room where Evan would have an office and spend nothing and just put Evan in that room?
From my perspective, yes.
I think so. I mean, I think it's really multi-use. So we use that often for if we have meetings, if Ann in particular has meetings with some member of the public or an applicant coming in. We also do a number of administrative trainings in there, whether it's Munis training or workshops, webinars, whatever it might be. Also during election time, that's also used pretty frequently. So it is used year-round by various individuals.
I think it was Kevin, Evan, and I, and a few others went out to the very front, looked at some alternatives. Is there a way to kind of unhinge a conference room outside of those 2 double doors? And realistically, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, from an engineer perspective, it just wasn't feasible because there's too many mechanical issues going on there. So now you're getting into the much higher cost ratio for that. So we're looking at potential options to both accomplish what we needed to, but still provide some opportunity for both yourselves and the public to come in for.
Y'all may have already discussed this. I left the room unavoidably. Is that a good spend of $80,000? Is it worth it?
I'm struggling with it, and one of the reasons why is that conference room, what will now be or what was the copy work area, there was a lot of stuff in there, a lot of equipment and a lot of storage. It's not going to fit and be that workable in that small space over there, I don't think.
We did some analysis. We would probably lose some of the cupboards. 50% of them are not being used to their full capacity. So we did the analysis on that one, and some of that IT stuff would have to get relocated probably in that secure storage area. Not a bad move. So that question has 2 answers on this one. First, if you're willing to go to other conference areas, no, that's not a decent expenditure of funds. There's multiple conference rooms all over the building, and we can get up and go to them. We can go up here, we can go to next door. So there's one by Lynn's office, but for bringing in the public and then trexing them all around the building just to go to a conference room, yes, it's worthwhile. So it's a 50-50 on this one. Do I want to have people traipse into the building trying to get them to an open conference room?
Can I ask a question? Who has an $80,000 need to bring the public into our conference rooms? Any up here? I do not, but others may.
Well,
Mayor?
I'll respond to this 80,000. Is that a good price? I'm a contractor. I don't know if that's a good price or not. But what I wanted to do is take this opportunity to say that I'm not sure in the past that we have sought out enough RFPs or bids on projects. And it's interesting because there's an article recently on the town of Lewis where they've apparently been doing things for years and years and years, decades or something, and then the new council people on board have said, we need to start bidding things out. Because we don't know whether we're getting good prices or not on our stuff.
But my question is not really about the price. That number could be anything. Because I'm committed to getting the third floor built out, and if I miss this discussion, I may have. Personally, my initial reaction to it is I'd rather wait and allocate whatever that dollar amount turns out to be to a full fit out of the third floor. That's just me.
I have a question as well, and my very first visit, when I went to see Lynn at that building on Lake Avenue, not to complicate anything, but I think Commissioner Sharnowski had made mention of it, it's underused, and is there a department we could move over there that would free up space? Or what is the plan for that building? Because I think that is such a nice location that's being underutilized.
Yes. I mean,
And how many offices are in there? 3 or 4, plus that huge conference room?
two offices, a storage room, a conference room, and a small kitchen with a
It's got
bathroom.
bathrooms and, yeah.
So, and that's, the direct connection to the parking department. So, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, that conference room is used several times throughout the year for various different larger meetings for people coming in.
Yeah, more than several. I mean,
Yeah.
we use progress meetings in there, that type of thing.
So the conference room has got some utility to it. I recognize that particular office area is probably underutilized. We hadn't had a chance to really kind of look at it in a total capacity.
So just,
If I could just say something, I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about, do we know where we want to go yet? And I think part of that was, no, we're new city managers, has different priorities, so he's trying to figure out how to staff. So we don't want to build something out and then realize, well, we needed 4 offices instead of 3, or we need an open space, not an office. So this was to address the immediacy of get the assistant city manager an office on the first floor. Now, whether you do that and lose a conference room and then see how that plays out, and do you need a conference room before you spend that? I mean, that's a course of action. But we were trying to initially just address that first priority of getting an office on the first floor without losing the conference. If you don't need the conference room, it gets used a lot.
I think
for you
that might be
to
one
decide.
option. Just go ahead and convert the front conference room to Evan's office. And then
see what the utility
retain
is?
everything else as it is. Because back where the copy work area, if you recall, that's where Captain Giles and of course Evan is now, but some of the people come up and that's their workstation. That could be the magic workstation for the commissioners to come in and sit there and be able to use stuff. So maybe we give it a try for a while and see if it's a burden, taking the public upstairs to the Building and Licensing Conference Center room or something.
I would never, ever think that I could make these decisions better than the city manager. So I'm going to stay out of this discussion. But I will go with the mayor. We need RFPs, we need RFPs, we need RFPs. We really do. So I think I've said about anything I need to say.
My only, after thinking about this a little bit, my only hesitation with moving Evan in that conference room now is it is the most convenient place to meet with anyone that's coming through the front. Whether it's for Donna or Ann, I mean, that's the easiest spot to meet with someone. I think I would, again, this is up to the, I don't want to spend $80,000 on this, is my point, and I would leave it up to the city manager, but I would more rather probably move someone in one of those other offices for Evan, is what I would probably do.
No, I happen to agree with Jay in terms of delegating this to the city manager.
I mean, the city manager is in charge of the administration of the city. And if this is his suggestion for an immediate fix, I know it's $80,000, but we've spent other monies, I won't say foolishly, but with not as much focus. But I think it is the front of the house. I think our assistant city manager, to project the image of that position, we need an office for that individual. I think it needs to be close to the city manager and also in the thick of things that a lot of times discussions are held around the water cooler, and it's best to be at that location to understand what's going on. And again, people coming into the conference room, my response would be, you just spent, 3 years ago, $20 million in this building. You've got to take me upstairs and through a corridor to sit down and have a meeting or to sign a affidavit for whatever voting or my parking ticket or all that type of stuff. I just think it's image and we've spent a lot on my favorite subject, the dock, a lot less than $80,000. But I just think for the image of what we've done, that this is a solution that the city manager and his staff have recommended, and I would support it.
Well, don't forget, there's also the city manager or mayor's conference suite there. So it's missing one conference suite on the first floor.
Broken
there.
off, it's not going all the way up. And I purposely made the recommendation to take that 395 and delay it a year. I hate to say it like this one, but it gives me airspeed and altitude to try and let's figure out where we're going at. Not that it's off the agenda because it's on the capital improvements for the following year. It's something we should be doing. I think we're obligated for the professionalism of our city staff, as of our city hall, and our organization to make sure all of that gets accomplished. Just need some more longitudinal timeline to get it done.
Is that, I support with what it is now and hope that 395, by the time we get to next year, that's spec'd out in the sense that we kind of know what our needs are and needs assessment, and that may be assisted through the comp study that we're doing.
So just to put a fine point on this, is this what you're going to do, or are you going to go back and look at it and revisit it?
This is what I would like to do.
Well, I'll just say that I am not in support of spending $80,000. I think one person could very easily be moved so that Evan has a nice office without spending $80,000. I am in support of planning for the third floor build out in 2025.
With your indulgence, can I come back to you on this one? And would it be okay if I just reach out via email on this one? Because I think I would give us an opportunity to get another look at it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Well, line 1 out of 128 done.
Moving right along.
So next would be the bandstand department. I can't speak to these items as well as Corey did, I think, at the last meeting. But again, so what I think he had mentioned was we need new speakers down there around the bandstand. So that item is in there at $25,000. Also included is soundboard and equipment, which we need to replace some of that equipment annually. So that's why that has been carried out over the next 5 years. And then finally, new amplifiers as well. So again, all sound-related equipment in order to continue to provide the service that we do down there at the bandstand as an entertainment venue. I know Corey had also mentioned some other things in terms of maintenance upkeep at the bandstand itself, so that all is included within his operating budget, not the capital.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
The maintenance of the facility itself, such as, I think there was some concrete work in there, all of that is within his department's operational budget.
What about lighting? He had mentioned lighting.
That is also in the operating budget.
Great, thank you.
Can I just add one thing? He mentioned that they didn't take down the speakers in the winter, or at least during like not just like a week or something, but like at the end of the season. Sure. And I think that would be a good practice if you're not going to be using them, because they get beat to hell out there. So.
Corey did mention the fact that the reason why they don't take them down is because it costs almost as much to take them down and put them back up as it does to replace them. So you have to bring in a specific type of consultant.
I mean, like in concert situations, they take them down every day, because they're moving them. So I'm just wondering if we could, figure out a way to make them a little bit more either protect them or put shrouds around them or something, but something like that.
Okay, moving on to buildings and grounds. Chuck wants to get a couple of replacement tables kind of periodically. Some of them are showing their age, so he's got about 10,000 in for some new conference room tables or convention center tables. He also has 15,000 in for replacing the windows, which are original to when that piece of the building was constructed. You can kind of see that during the construction of this building, I guess, something happened to those windows. You can't see through 5 of the 6 of them, and then on one of the 2 sets actually leaks. So we just thought we'd get all those replaced at the same time.
They're original to when the convention hall was built?
Whenever that wing was done, and I don't know when that was.
That's the west side there, right? Oh,
That's staff park.
West side, yes.
Looks out over the staff parking
staff
lot.
parking,
Yep.
okay.
Comfort stations, we've had a couple of independent briefings on this with the designer coming in and all. So we've put in the first year's worth of the expansion of the Baltimore Avenue restroom and the new Beach Patrol headquarters building. A pretty heavy lift there at 2.4 with the intent of getting first floor done so that we can put the restrooms back into operation for next summer and then complete the second level and the whatever else is to be remaining that second off-season period. And you'll see a second budget entry for FY25.
Scheduled any bids for that yet, or? What is
We
the
have not. We've actually working on the geothermal wells at this point, which is going to finish the design for the mechanical system. So I think they're still planning on being ready to advertise April, May kind of timeframe, with a construction start right after Labor Day. Moving on to the streets department, this is an item we've had in over a period of time. We really like the preventive maintenance on this. We get it sent out, get an update. This, as you know, these things work around the clock almost in the summertime, starting about 3 or 4 in the morning and running until they finish up about 8 or 9 to get off the beach in time for the umbrellas and everything else to go up. It's served us very well so far.
You're satisfied with the Barber Beach rake? Have you looked at any others?
We haven't looked. Mike and the guys are very happy with this. It seems to get
Barber.
Pretty much everything up that we need.
Is it, any idea on the cost of a new one?
I might have.
I want to say it was 90.
It sounds that. Oh, wrong. Yeah, it does sound in that range. I don't have
Okay.
the cost for that.
If we're spending 20, last year, the proposed refurbishment was 30, so he dropped 10,000. So, but that's, the peak here is the beach, so to keep
Right,
it
absolutely. Yeah,
maintained.
absolutely. And it actually gets a 2-year workload because we have 2 of them, so we alternate which one we send out for repair or for preventive. Our citywide paving program this year, we did half of Scarborough and Norfolk Street. We've been allocating $450,000 a year for our citywide street paving. We're going to continue that again this year. We're scheduled to do the other half of Scarborough and then Laurel, where we also need to do a bunch of other infrastructure work. This map will kind of depict what we've done. In the red has been since 2018. What we did, the green was last year, half of Scarborough and Norfolk. The blue on Scarborough and Laurel is what we anticipate to do this coming year. And then the blue of Rehoboth Avenue, we'll talk to on the next slide, where the DelDOT has told us they're going to start resurfacing Rehoboth Avenue next fall. And we're working with them now to make sure that our 2 blocks are incorporated in whatever design work they're doing with respect to curbs, ramps, those kind of things. So we've got $55,000 in for our kind of design phase of all that. They've indicated to me that they'll include our piece with theirs. They'll do the resurfacing all under their contract, and then they'll collect from us at the end. So that would tip that you'll see the larger number in 2025 because that's when we think they would be sending us the bill for the work that they have done, probably next May or June, which would be our next fiscal year. But we've got that upfront money to get all that preliminary work done. Plus, I think it gets most of our inspection that we would want to do during those 2 blocks construction as well.
Kevin, the way I've been looking at some of these things is if we get to the point where we need to scratch some things off, what would they be? Maybe the new tables for convention center, although that's only $10,000. But this $55,000, did you all consider that maybe that $55,000 should be part of that $450,000 annual?
We did not. I did not. Yeah, I hate to decrement that citywide paving because we're really trying to get caught up, as you remember from several years ago. And if
Yeah, I just don't know where we're at with it. I mean, we're at the point where we're kind of catching up, and there's not that immediacy, although it is referred to as urgent.
Yeah.
And that would make the entire street consistent with DelDOT's repaving, correct?
Correct. I think what the mayor's saying is maybe we don't do one of the other parts that we were planning to do and use some of that 450 for that 50. Right.
Stick with 450,000.
Correct.
Thank you.
I did not look at it that way. Our storm sewer assessment and repairs, we've dropped that a little bit this year. I'll show you on the next slide. Glory, glory, hallelujah, right? At the end of this year, we will have cleaned and videoed every one of our storm sewer pipes. So that was a nice 4-year program. We got aided considerably the year of COVID when there was no other work for that crew and not a whole lot of people in town, so they went like crazy. So our 5-year program became 4. So we'll have everything cleaned and videoed over the last 4 years. That last little bit of red is what they're finishing up this year. We may or may not do the black squiggly there that is the parking lot out here and behind City Hall because we know that that's in fairly decent shape, having just been constructed not too long ago. So now we have the assessment. Now we'll have to just do spot checking and spot cleaning as rather than let it develop for however many years before we go back in and try to clean again. So we'll.
So those areas that are just so no color at all, they don't need to be reviewed, assessed? Just like over in the school view?
Well, in one neighborhood, which you're very familiar with, there is no stormwater pipe there.
Right.
So there's nothing to. Same down here. So these all flow, there's First Street, and the rest just kind of flows overland. There's not necessarily piping there to clean and inspect.
Thanks.
Next up, one of our stormwater projects that we've been trying to do, or we want to do, is is the Scarborough Extended Park at the end, which our outfall has been in need of repairs recently. So there's our outfall pipe going to the lake. The outfall headworks itself is kind of broken and fallen over. So we want to go in there and replace that. I think Liz has talked to the project at some point in time with rehab of the garden area and the park area itself. What we have coming down Scarborough Extended, the water, a lot of it is just sheet flow down the road, and there's nothing to stop it. So it goes into these two sides of the park, and it's caused considerable erosion down each side of the park, and then that just runs straight to the lake. So if you looked over to the schematic on the right, our plan would be to install 2 catch basins at the top of the hill, at the very left edge, west edge of the park, to capture the overland flow and then get it to the pipe and then rebuild this outfall headworks down here. And then Liz has in her plan to come back in and redo the landscaping for that park after we get completed with the outfall construction. So we've missed a year because we were just coordinating. We didn't want to do one and then not do the other, or do the landscaping and then come in there and dig it all up to put the head wall out there. So we've been working with Liz on trying to get this coordinated, and we think we have that the opportunity this year to do the outfall repairs, drop those catch basins in, as well as have her get the landscaping done.
What is your timeline on this? Do you just roughly?
So this would be a question, if it makes it through the budget, we would come to the residents out there and say, do you mind if this is done during the summer? I don't know, you've got a bunch of houses out there that are being constructed now as well. So whether you want that disturbance during the summer or you want to wait till the fall, we can do that based upon the local residents' their opinion. If they rather wait till the fall, we'd wait till the fall. If not, we'd probably get started this summer.
And I don't know how you even want to think about the rehab of the landscaping in the park. I'll just reiterate again that landscaping, for 95% of it, was paid for by the residents of the street. It did not belong to the city. The city cultivated nothing but weeds and invasive things on the lake. So if you're going to talk to them about timing, you might want to think internally how you want to think about a street end, which is what we call it, a street end, where the residents of the street have been the ones that have been doing the maintaining, with the exception of mowing and edging.
Is this a recent photograph?
It came off of Google Earth, so I'm not sure how recent it is. I guess we can look. 2021.
It's got the rocks on either side. That was a project done by Bob Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's recent as the last decade. It was done since I retired, so.
Pre-2018, I would tell you.
Is that when it was?
Pre-2018.
Oh, pre-2018,
Right.
yes. So
'Cause
it's
I think
been,
those rocks were in
it's
place
been a
already.
little, it's been quite a while that those pipes have been broken.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Next up we have is the the sidewalk over adjacent to where we're doing the pedestrian improvements now at the State Road, Grove Street intersection, and they're well underway there. And then there was the desire to try to connect between the bottom left of the photo, kind of where that project is going to end, and then take a sidewalk all the way down to the corner of Grove and 6th. Because if you'll recall, coming around from the circle, heading down Grove, you have sidewalk on that first block, and then no sidewalk between 6th and State. So this would connect all of that with a nice new sidewalk all the way down to the intersection at State Road, and then nice new crossings there. Kind of get an idea with the highlight here, kind of the extent of it. You know, it'll go from the back of the curb, be a new curb, and then sidewalk at the back of the curb, extending into the easement area about 5 feet for the sidewalk. It does not involve relocating any of the telephone poles. We'll bow it out around the telephone pole so we don't have to worry about that. Still maintaining the adequate clearance for ADA compatibility or compliance. Another Grove Street project, this is one that one of the Streets and Transportation Committee, I guess, brought to the board. Board said, yeah, we want to try to support that. So we have this Royal Farms in the bottom right part of the photo, and a Columbia Avenue coming down, and it would put a curb tying in right around the vicinity of that stormwater drain there, so we don't block that, and then a curb running down the edge of the shoulder and then back in here. So it'll maintain those parking spaces that are there now, but also provide a much safer area here. So people aren't parking out in here, getting out into traffic, that type of thing. So that would be that piece there, and to the tune of about 48,000.
And the red is what the curb is?
Correct.
And then inland of that is a concrete sidewalk?
No, there's no sidewalk in this. We took the sidewalk out. We're just doing curb, and it'll be landscape, grass and bushes or whatever that is there now.
Okay. I had a hard time orienting myself originally because I'd look at it as the Columbia Street curb improvement.
Correct.
Yeah.
The request came, I guess, to the committee from One Grove, so
Yeah,
it kind of took on a name of its own.
I feel we somewhat committed to it earlier, so.
Agreed.
I'm fine with that. I thought were contemplating a sidewalk for 2/3 of it though, but.
Then I think you'll recall, it became an issue of the landing, and where do you get them off of that to direct them across that Y there in Columbia. So I think the decision was we're just going to put the curb in, make that piece so nobody could park there, make that a little bit safer.
Right.
Without directing people in any particular direction.
Do you know stormwater inlet there anywhere?
There is. There was
There's
at
two
least
of them.
two, right. So under this design, neither one have to be relocated. So we're able to fit that curb in, I guess, land side of the road there to get, actually, it's going to help because right now we get a big puddle right about in here, and with the regrading and a little bit of pavement maintenance, it'll drive that water down to that inlet. So that'll be a nice thing for us as well.
And it would keep some of the debris and soil and stuff from going into the stormwater crate.
It should,
I think.
yeah, it should. Okay. Big vehicle replacement this year, $170,000 for replacing one of our trash trucks. We're going to go from it's a 2020 year on the trash truck, so I've been running around here for 23 years, 22 years. It'll go, I guess, to the sale, and then replace it with a new model, and we're going to go to a second, the smaller model, which we find much more easily maneuvered in town, especially in the summertime. So that just a clip to show the two different sizes, and we're trading in or we're selling off an old, larger one for a new, smaller one. So part of our routine, kind of vehicle fleet updating. This is one in our never-ending desire to help protect things from the weather. We leave a lot of our stuff out in the open for all year long. So this, we'd like to get a truck barn, kind of a storage area, over in our recycle yard, on that back side of the recycle yard. Just an opportunity to get some of these vehicles and pieces of equipment that we don't use as seasonal or as much throughout the course of the year. But we could put winter stuff there, in the summertime, and get our summertime stuff out there in the wintertime, just to try to help protect it a little bit, get it out of the weather.
Could you review your hierarchy of classifications for desire of these things? We have desirable, deferrable, and urgent. I assume desirable is at the bottom.
Yes, that's correct.
And then deferrable is the middle, and then urgent. It's just the three categories. Okay. Because again, I just put a little circle around some that if I had to, I would consider deferring, or if the money needed to go elsewhere.
Next project
Oh,
on.
let me share
sure.
with you real quick, just FYI, since we're at it. Probably about 12 years ago, we designed a truck barn over there that was probably 4 times that size. And Reason we did that is we thought we could get emergency funds from the feds to have an emergency aid station if a storm came or something. And we designed it and all that stuff so that it could house supplies and all this stuff. And I don't know where the heck it went, but obviously it disappeared.
Well, if you look in 2025 and 2026, you might see the kind of the remnants of that plan.
Is that right?
Yeah, right. Because, right, so this helps. Obviously, you know where the streets department is now. This is the other yard. But I think
the other yard,
right, the original design that was done in 2009, I believe,
Yeah.
was for a complex there at the street yard.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
you may see that come up in a couple of the out years, because we think it would be good to get that place cleaned up and
Thank you.
fixed up a little
Thank
bit.
you.
Mayor, as we're going through here and looking at priorities, can I ask a question of the city manager? Looking at the budget package for meeting number 4, am I to understand that this is not a balanced budget, and there's at least in the general fund, there's a $1,065,000 deficit?
No, it is a balanced budget. Which page are you looking at?
Page number 2. General fund revenues in excess of expenditures. Negative $1,065,164.
Is this what you're looking at?
Yes.
We're bringing over funds from the unassigned reserve, correct?
Yeah, I'll have to look at that line item again, but actually page 1 of the budget support document gives the revenue expense budget. At the very bottom, you'll see grand total revenue in excess of expenditures is 0, so we have a balanced budget.
Very bottom on page 1.
That is, yeah, page 1 of the meeting number 4 support document.
So where on here does it show that we're bringing in money from reserves? 'Cause I'm looking at sort of the first section, general fund revenues in excess of expenditures, and there's a negative, $1,065,000. Now we have an excess in the water funds of 1.1, but I mean, that's an enterprise fund. We can't use that to pay for general fund expenses.
So we are using some of the wastewater funds for other projects.
For wastewater capital improvement projects,
capital
correct.
improvements, but that's not what you're referencing, is it?
Yeah, I mean, does my question make sense?
What is the account number and page number?
So it's page 1, it's sort of the recap sheet, it's,
Page 1, very. Operating 16 for general fund debt service. Total general fund expenditures 22,316. Revenues in excess of expenditures. In my head, I can't reconcile that, so.
If I put my rate study hat back on, which I really don't like to do, but I think Bert would say that not all of that water revenue is enterprise fund. There are certain things within the water budget that are, and that cannot be used for other uses.
okay.
I know that we had, as part of that rate study group, we put, I think, 700,000 or something into that rate study to apply, from the water side, to apply to the general fund.
Okay.
For that reason. Because it's a moneymaker for us. I mean, it's a revenue source for us.
I know there are also some other revenue sources towards the end which also are attributed to general fund. So municipal street aid is general fund, police grant revenues are general fund, so.
As long as you're positive that we're at
Oh, yeah.
a zero balance at the end, I looked at that first page and said, oh, do we need to cut $1 million from somewhere?
We've already had Glenn opine a couple times on these things because we didn't know if we could use specific, enterprise-related funds for certain projects, but he did give us a formal opinion on that one, that we are allowed because based off of what's in the code. Yeah, because we didn't know on one if we could do that one, so.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No sweat.
No, great question. This is great dialogue.
So the next project in the streets department is the retrofitting all of our poles that run down the median of Rehoboth Avenue. And it's the first phase of a three-phase program to replace all of our street lights and decorative lights with LEDs. So first ones that we're going to take a shot at are the median. So it's 32 poles, I think, with 2 lights and 4 poles with 1 light. So that, and it also comes with a controller where they can be remotely dimmed, raised, timers, whatever that we would need, sensors to allow us to control them along that whole bank along Rehoboth Avenue. And as you'll probably notice, a lot of that, the black bluing or it's not paint, but whatever that coating on the outside of those lights is in pretty bad shape. And obviously we had an issue with a couple lights falling off and that kind of thing. So this would do all the lights, new lights
I'm
down.
sorry, new housings, the whole thing?
New arms, new fixtures. So the pole, just the
with
pole would
LED.
remain. With LED.
So can I just ask a question about the rationale on why doing all the median rather than just one block? Next year do the second block? I'm only asking from, I guess, an aesthetic standpoint, looking down the street and seeing one type of light on a block one way and then a different light on the sides.
We just, in my mind anyway, we just try to keep like things like. So the median poles, we do all of them.
Right.
Next year we do all of the street lights, and then the third year
Because
would be like the
they're
boardwalk.
different styles.
Correct,
Yeah,
right.
understood. That makes sense.
Just curious, looking back at last year, the projected cost on this is almost doubled. Is the cost of the product gone up, or just doing more, or?
Electrical components have skyrocketed since COVID. I don't recall if we may also have originally planned to do them in a different sequence. I think we had originally planned to do the boardwalk first because we were having all these issues with the folks that wanted to put antennas on poles. So I think that was a smaller price tag. I've got that. I can look real quick. But I think we were going to do the boardwalk first under the earlier plan.
The 3 years, last year, it was 480,000, and now we're looking at 3.6, almost 800,000, so double.
About double. Yeah, no, 50% increase would have been probably more of an expectation. So in my mind anyway.
Scope of work is.
Scope of work is the same, right?
Okay.
Median lights one time, street lights second time, and then boardwalk lights kind of the third time.
And have you been able to do any projected savings in electrical costs on that?
I have not.
Are the color temperatures going to be the same as what we have there? Because that would minimize maybe your concern.
So I think the last code revision required a 3,000 degree Kelvin max, I think, so they would make all of those that same temperature.
You notice we had new lights replaced in here recently, and I think they are 3,500 Kelvin. Man, thank you.
Well, I'm excited to get this project. We've deferred this many times, and I'm glad and I'm very hopeful that we start moving this forward.
Next up is the beach patrol.
Captain is here to present his capital project for the beach patrol. He is proposing a Sea-Doo GTI with trailer and rescue sled. So I will turn it over to the captain.
Up here, okay?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Want to sit at the table too?
Okay, yeah. I'll give you some justification for the jet ski. There is a jet ski that the fire company has. But on 3 occasions last summer, if it's not really going to be a rescue or a missing person, we're really not going to be able to utilize their jet ski, and only they can operate it. So it's nice to have it, but it is, and there would be a lengthy delay in getting it in the water and ready to go. So talking to some people at Ocean City and other larger agencies. A jet ski is really going to help us out. First, in rescues, we have what's called a Codex. Codex is when you have someone who saw someone in the water and now they can't find them. Because we handle over 330 missing kids all summer, missing people, but we don't get many of the codexes, and we don't want to hear a codex because that's the scenario that we don't want to have. We did have one last year, but it ended up being somebody who left the area running down the Dewey and came back later, and they thought that they were in the water, so we started setting things up. This will be very advantageous for us in a codex situation. We have rescue boards, but this will be up at Deauville Beach. We'll be able to put it up there near where the shacks are at the north end of Deauville Beach. And we'll be able to take our Polaris, pull it to the Henlopen jetty, and that's where we can put it in the water, and we'll practice and practice and practice. So the Codex scenario is really, this is going to be great to have, along with the sled, which is about $800 for the sled. And the training, there's really no training for it. Anybody can take your license and you can operate a jet ski, but that's not what we're going to do. Anybody who's going to be operating a jet ski is going to be a lieutenant or a chief. We're going to go through some training with Ocean City. They sort of set up their own training. There is no Coast Guard training to operate a jet ski, but we're going to make sure that we get everything documented. If we take it out in the water, we're going to have a sign-up sheet for it. We're going to wear helmets. We're going to wear vests. And we're going to make sure that we do it correctly. Other scenarios that we need to jet ski, if you guys are familiar with the Mid-Atlantic lifeguard competitions and our lifeguard Olympics, we like to bring people in the city from outside to see just how fun the competitions are and what the guards do. We want to continue that. The use of a jet ski is going to help us set up. It's going to be great for safety measures. It's going to be used to set up on the perimeters to make sure that we keep the people that are competing in the event safe. So it's just something that we really need.
Thank you, Jeff. My first thought was, this is a nice new toy for the
The
beach
captain
patrol.
will not be on the jet ski. No,
but,
that will not happen.
And I think you've answered a lot of my questions. The biggest concern for me was training. And that how do you go out there and maneuver among the swimmers without knocking them or running them over?
One good thing, Mayor, is we had we had 3 guards that went down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and 2 of the members have gotten full-time jobs there. It's a full-time agency down there. And one of our guys went down, and he's one of the lieutenants, and he's coming back, and he's a jet ski operator. So he went through all of their training. And we use the USLA as a guideline, has standards set up for it. And he's going to come back and help me write up the training standards that he went through at Fort Lauderdale. And we're going to put it all in writing and make sure we do it correctly. So again, this isn't something that we're going to just go take out for fun and have the guards play on it. This is not that scenario. This is not. So it's going to be utilized for saves. It's going to be utilized for security, and
So you're not going to use it for show and go up and down the beach with Cypress Gardens type of water skiers?
And like I said, if you see a day that I'm out on the jet ski, that's a real bad day.
So where do you keep it when you're not on the beach? Are you then tow it daily to some location where
we were looking at actually, we could get a cover for it. We could cover it up and we could lock it up at North Deauville Beach, up in the parking lot. So we have that one shack up there, and we're looking at putting something up. I talked to Art, and we were talking about discussions on putting in some type of pole that we can lock this onto and get a locking mechanism on it.
versus putting it inside the shed?
Yeah, because then it's something that we can go grab real quickly. We can get the Polaris up there. This new Polaris can tow that. So, I mean, it should be very quickly, we should be able to get it on the beach.
Any estimated cost for operations for it and maintenance?
Yeah, it's been built in. The jet ski itself's like $13,500. You figure
10% to 15% would be maintenance, so that'd be about $3,000. The rest is for the sled, and then also, like I said, we're going to get 3 different helmets and some life vests.
And over winter storage?
Winter, yeah, we can either store it ourselves. Back if the one you were looking at with those sheds that we have at the maintenance area, we put Beach Patrol, we put our Polarises in there. We'll tow that and put it in there. So it's going to be nice for if we do improve those facilities, it would be great.
You know how I feel about storage of the vehicles at the Beach Patrol building, so I'm sure, hopeful you can't find a way to get that across the dune crossing and park it in front of the Beach Patrol building, so.
The new Beach Patrol building, we will have those garages, but I think we'll be able to keep the Polarises in there. But I think to get them out of the element, it's going to be good to put them back at the maintenance yard. It's just a lot better.
If something new, it'll enhance safety. If your boss, as chief of police, is fine with them and city manager, then I'm fine with it.
Agreed.
Okay, police department?
Sure. I'll talk to the 2 items in the police department, and then Lieutenant Riddle is here to answer any questions you might have. First is a replacement CVSA 3 computer, which is a computer voice stress analyzer. Again, this is a computer that we currently have, and that is to replace that system. And the next is replacement police vehicles. So we have budgeted, the number does need to be updated on this slide, but we need to budget for 3 replacement police vehicles. We have just shown an image of the existing vehicles that we use, which are the Ford Explorer police interceptors.
Supply chain continues to be a significant problem with replacement vehicles. We're still in concert with our current lease program, Enterprise, and right now we can't get the vehicles that we're looking for. Just for this year alone, we still have significant funds available. We're at the decision point to make a determination whether to move forward with the purchase of an F-150 for the police detective. That's the new industry standard that's going around Delaware and other adjacent communities and other states. These detectives, because of the length of some of the equipment that they need, are using the truck beds, which is a much more utility than the Ford Explorers. And then these are much more utility than what Enterprise is trying to give us, which are Chargers, and that splits the fleet. And then we have Fords and Dodges and Chevys, and I'm a pure fleet. You know what you're looking at going down the street. You know what year it is, and then also much cheaper for maintenance because they only need a certain amount of maintenance requirements, everything from engine oil to filters and things of that nature. But vehicles continue to be an issue that we're looking to overcome. It's very difficult.
So you said leasing them, this particular vehicle from Enterprise would be problematic. Would we be able to purchase them?
We're thinking we're going to get 3 in the lease in a few months. I think, was it 3 to 5 months? I think we're looking to get, but it's still becoming problematic to try and just get the vehicles. We're a year behind right now because we didn't lease any for this year. So now we've got 3 in the queue that are really going to be for this year, but we'll end up getting them for next year, for the FY 2024. So yes, COVID is still rearing its ugly head.
And what did you say about an F-150?
The F-150 for the police detectives. A lot of the detectives in a lot of different communities are using trucks because of the beds. And you'll have the latch and the whole nines. So that's where we're looking to try and get this last expenditure of this year's fund on a commitment to try and move forward with the vehicle. And we're still trying to get that one ironed out.
So that's a purchase or a lease?
That will be a purchase.
And it would be gas-powered?
Yes, it will be gas-powered. I'm a build it and then field it kind of guy. I think we need to look at our infrastructure here within the building and the greater community, get that infrastructure built, and then be able to field it as we go along. So.
Thank you.
On to the wastewater department. the big animal in the room, right? So State Road Pump Station reconstruction. You've seen the wonderful photos we discovered of the condition of the wet well at the State Road Pump Station. So we've spent this year getting the design done. We actually issued notice to proceed, I think in January. They've started doing some test pitting. We've gotten the environmental assessment back, so there is some lead paint there that'll have to get remediated, but no asbestos. So that work has started, and it should get ramped up full speed here in not too distant future. In the past several years, we've had our kind of programmatic sewer cleaning and CCTV effort ongoing. We decremented it a little bit in the coming year and Evan mentioned that early on, from 200,000 to 100,000. This will give you an idea. This year, we will complete all of the in-town sewer mains, gravity sewer mains. We have not done force mains. So the next year effort we'll have to do, we want to move on out into North Shores and start doing the cleaning and videoing of the collection system out in North Shores. But green is done over the past couple of years. Red, we're finishing up this year. So we'll have all of our stormwater and sanitary sewer mains cleaned and videoed. So we have a really good feel for, the condition that they're all in. And now, like I said, we still have North Shores to do. We'll do it in, I think we'll probably try to do it in 2 phases, half next year and then half that following year.
Kevin, quick question on the one previous, the State Road Pump Station. It doesn't say it on here, but was that part of the Phase 3?
No, it was kind of a standalone project. For years, I guess, we had not been able to bypass that pump station. So it was about a 3-year period. We replaced some valves, replaced some piping, and then we're finally able to dewater, bypass that pump station, take the water out of the wet well, and do the condition assessment. And that happened probably 2-3 years ago when we first kind of encountered that.
Okay.
I said, hey, this is an immediate need. So we actually put it in this current year. We just couldn't get the design done in time to get much done this current FY. So it's never been part of the wastewater treatment plant 4-phased rehab program.
So it would not have been included in the analysis of the wastewater fees?
It was not, correct. Not as a standalone item. There would have been associated, small item repairs,
Right.
Fuel, that kind of thing, but not as a standalone project. And then the other thing Bert would always want to highlight is, we get some of that back from the county because Henlopen Acres flows through there, North Shore flows through there. So we get a little bit of relief from, our partners, but it doesn't get the big relief, that the county provides because most of the county comes in separate to this, doesn't go through that pump station.
Okay.
So it's a big apple that we got to bite.
Kevin, our sewer pipes, the original gravity fed, I think, were terracotta.
A lot of them, most of them are.
So we've slowly over the years been replacing some with PVC, I guess, right?
Some.
And what about the force mains? Are they terracotta also?
Most of those are ductile iron, so no, they're not terracotta because they have a tendency to leak. So if you're putting it under pressure, under a force main scenario, the terracotta, I doubt was used when they put those in. So the ones we've seen, in fact, I think some of those, those are some of my favorite pictures. So
That's some right there.
yeah, that was force main over by the State Road Pump Station, and we were finally able to bypass that and check that. Now those we suspected were particularly bad because of the condition where they are. They get a lot of times when there's no flow in there, so the gas, hydrogen sulfide, just eats at those for a while. So we kind of suspected that, but they're probably the worst things we probably would have seen in Rehoboth. So the force mains will be next. We're going to actually started doing some of we put the plan together on how we can assess them because you can't get in them. So you have to do some other ways, or you have to take them out of service in order to cut them to get into them. So we're working with GHD. We got the plan together this year, and then we'll start that in our engineering budget next year to start doing an assessment of the force mains.
So the remediation is replacement versus that liner?
Yes, yeah. Now you can line them, but again, because you can't get through a valve with a liner, so you have to cut, line, and then do something else around the valves. So, thank you. Next, we have a PLC replacement. So this was part of, again, a program we have with the wastewater department over a period of time to replace these programmable logic controllers. So these are the brains of when to do certain things at the plant and the operation of it. And over a period of time, I think we got 2 or 3 more years until we get through all of them. But you may recall we actually had Keystone come in and kind of prepare a long-range PLC and SCADA, or programming and SCADA plan for us. So this is part of that plan where we just do kind of 1 a year. A little different in that we did do some as part of, the CIP upgrade at the wastewater treatment plant, but these would get our outlying pump stations, as well as this pump station PS1, which is a small plant there on the wastewater treatment plant compound itself. So just the next one in the line of several that we do. The pipe rehab program, we'd had much higher level of funding for the last couple of years in this, and you'll see it. We project a higher number in the out years. We just pulled off of this because of the huge expense, with the state road pump station. So we just thought this was an opportunity. We've got 50 in there, so if we have some spot repairs that we need to do, we can do those. But we'll just hold on, lining and that kind of thing until following year. Our videos have showed that we don't really have a pressing need at this point that can't delay a little bit. So we cut it back to handle whatever point repairs we have to do that we come upon during our cleaning. Pump replacement, this is, again, something that the wastewater department does pretty much every year. Bert likes us to show it on the capital list so that he can capture it and depreciate it or whatever magic he does to it with respect to the budget. But we buy one every year, and we typically replace an existing one each year at various locations throughout. So it's just a generic pump replacement. You may recall back in the phase 2 at the wastewater treatment plant, there used to be a substation that sat atop of this concrete pad. So as that came out with the phase 2 and they put the new electrical controls and the new backup generator, then we'd like to put some storage on that platform so that we can get some of this stuff that just lays on the ground down there, get it up out of the weather. This depiction of the shed is probably not a very good one because we want to be able to get the forklift right into the front of the doors or whatever so they can get that stuff up off the ground and into a covered and controlled area. This is also our Phase 3B year in that, we have SRF funds that are going to pay for the majority of 3B. But as we went to bid last year and opened up, we were short remaining funds in the SRF, so we committed to funding some out of our annual budget. So this year we'll need about $1 million. And Phase 3B is the dewatering. So this is a picture of a belt filter press. So you can kind of see the poop as it comes out after being squeezed, right? So it gets a lot of the water out. It's a little more solid. And what you'll see down at the plant, these are the aerators. So this old digester, it'll come out and it gets replaced with a new building. This is where the belt filter press building will go. And then there's some reconfiguration over here in these digesters. And ultimately, we will get to see this. This is our lovely Terrigator out there at Slaughter Neck, where we land apply our biosolids, and there he is full of sludge, and he's putting it in the ground. So hopefully at the end of 3B, we'll kind of be out of the land application business, and we'll dry it enough that we can send it to the county. Actually, the county will come pick it up, haul it away, and dispose of it. In Phase 4, I say the final phase of our wastewater treatment plant upgrade, a lot of the non-operational kinds of things that just kept getting deferred until Phase 4. That design will be done this year, so we've got the money in for the design of that. Some of the big ticket items are, you see our overflow tanks and sludge storage tanks are in pretty bad shape, so there's some reconditioning of those, repainting of those. Some of our lab equipment is in pretty bad shape. It's old and gets used every day. So some options here that we're still working with Bill Woods and the designer is whether to kind of relocate the lab and do some nicer things with the lab, or just replace in kind. We have part of that building, their admin building down there, that used to have an old press in it that we've dismantled, hauled that out, hauled that away. And so we have some space over there that we could use if we wanted to relocate it and make a kind of a break room for the guys. Also need to replace, these are all original roofs from back in, the early 80s when this was done. So we've had obviously some of the seams have ripped. We've had some case where one of them actually collapsed right over in the Headworks building not too long ago. So it's to repair and replace some of the roofs, mainly the admin building. And then the other kind of big ticket item is we have a concrete pad out where whenever the sewer vac goes out and is cleaning out a hole or sucking out a backup or whatever, then this is a pad where we can drop it to there, then drains into the collection system or into the treatment system, but allows a place to put it. So we need to get this kind of reconfigured to today's day and age, such that it serves our needs better with where we have to dump that sludge while we're waiting for it to dewater, and then process that water into the treatment plant. So this is a big ticket item for the design of our hopefully final phase of the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. And on to our water department. As you know, over the past several years, we've had water meter replacement program. We just awarded, actually had NTP this morning on this year's, so they'll start that work tomorrow on the north side of town. We cut that back this year. We had been going about $500,000 a year, just because of the availability of the meters. We just haven't, just a hard time getting the quantity of meters that we had hoped for. So we cut it back a little bit next year just to give us provided the money to somewhere else. Plus, we weren't sure we'd be able to get enough meters to do anyway. I think I told you as we were getting ready to award this one, last year on April 1st or April 2nd, Robert ordered 600 meters, and we're still waiting for them to arrive for this year's program. So he's using some that he had for in-house replacements. Hopefully that they should arrive any day, they keep telling us. So that's a continuation of that program. Water main replacement, we've tied this, the last couple of years, we've tied this in with our paving program such that we can replace our small diameter, 4-inch cast iron water mains, which all have lead goosenecks. So this helps us in a lot of ways. Gets the lead goosenecks out, gets us an 8-inch pipe, more flow, more volume into the pipe, as well as remove some of the older pipe out of the system. And we'll do that again this year, and this would be the replacement of the water main on Laurel Street. And then we'll and probably plan to do the same thing we did this year with doing ancillary sewer repairs at the same time. We've got some stormwater repairs we need to do there, and also offer the same kind of thing with the sidewalks. And if the homeowners want to partake of us being out there and doing that work for them, we'll do that.
Kevin, could you give an estimate of what percentage of the city have had their water mains replaced?
No, I really can't, Commissioner. I can talk to Robert and kind of come up with what it is. I know we still have a lot of the 4-inch mains with the lead goosenecks. So that's our focus of getting those out. I know when Howard was here and they were doing replacements over time, they would always replace it with PVC, so that's helped.
The 4-inch pipes go to the fire hydrants with black caps on them?
That's an indicator that there's not enough flow, right? The black cap.
Low flow, no flow
Right.
hydrants,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other thing that is just interesting in Rehoboth, we have a lot of cul-de-sacs, right? So you got a lot of dead-end 4-inch mains. Yeah, it's not good anywhere, but then you put it in a resort community where those houses sit vacant for 6 months out of the year, provides an opportunity for, bacteria to grow and that kind of thing. So we encourage everyone that's on a dead-end 4-inch main to let their water flow quite a bit before they actually use it when they come in for a weekend or for the summer or whatever. And then we also have a program where we go out and try to flush those periodically with the water department to try to just minimize that opportunity for the bacteria growth and algae growth. So, speaking of our water department, our well 6 has been offline for a couple of years now. which is the small one in the heart of the Breezewood community. So we've been studying a way to replace that capacity. So the option we've selected is to put a new well 6, and we're calling it well 6 still, but to relocate that well over to our well 8 complex off of Warrenton Road. Warrenton, on that side I think it's Warrenton. Over by the new BB Hospital.
And the new library.
Ouch. I don't want that on me. But at the back of that, we have a fairly significant sized lot out there. So at the back of that, we've done the test well. We've got the flow reports back. It's acceptable for us. So this year, we want to go ahead and reinstall well 6 out there at our well 8 complex, very near the treatment system, gets us close to our distribution system. So much easier fix and much more cost-effective fix than trying to find another location of ground that we'd have to go out and buy and then pipe it over to get into our system. This is a fairly good, I think, and cost-effective means to replace the lost capacity on the old well 6.
So is that really a replacement for the projected work on 8 that 6 kind of took over? Because weren't we looking at rehabbing well 8 this year?
So we did some rehab already on well 8 this year, current year, but we'll keep that in service. That's one of our larger production wells, and then 6 it'll all go into that treatment complex there at in that building that you see out at well 8. And then this, if assuming we get our 600 meters in this year, then I think we've reached critical mass on, we want to go to this FlexNet system, and that involves putting a couple of antennas and transmitters out on our water towers. This will give us the ability to remotely turn on, turn off water, as we get people that don't pay their bill or they just want to shut it down in the summertime or whatever. We'll be able to do that remotely. We'll be able to, we won't have to go out to every house, and read the meters. It'll all be automatically read. And our residents can now will be able to go online and look and see what they're using. So if you're on vacation, you're vacationing here, you're in this house and you're living in DC and you want to check, is water being used here? You can just go online and check. You'll see real-time data on usage and consumption on your meter at that time. So this is $250,000 will get us that capability. Again, it gives it great for the consumer because they can see what they're actually using. It certainly makes it easier for us for meter readings and billings, and also to be able to control from a central location as opposed to have to go out to each one individually.
Does this make any difference in staffing?
It does not. Yeah, I mean, at least certainly not until we get all 6,000 converted over to the automated readers.
Can you?
I'm sorry, is this a one-time fee, basically?
Yes.
Other than maintenance, it's not all additionally a lease program or anything?
I believe it's just a one-time fee to get the system installed.
Well, the upgrades.
Well, of course.
Yeah, Ed?
No, I was just going to ask, you said reading the meters remotely, which I thought we already did.
We have a semi-remote. I mean, we can, in some of our neighborhoods, some of our routes, we can drive the vehicle down and it'll
it reads it,
collect,
okay.
right. Some, not so much. You have to go kind of touch. And then there's still a handful you got to pull the lid off and go look at the digital reading or the readout. So any of those that have that transmitter, the AMX, I think it's called, transmitter on that meter, will be able to transmit to this. So all those ones we've done over the past 4 or 5 years all will be compatible with this system. So, okay.
Next for the IT department is our computer lifecycle replacements. So this is an annual program that we have in our capital improvement plan. Again, $33,000 a year. That replaces approximately 1/3 of our computer inventory. On the left is sort of an example of what we traditionally have used. That's the Dell Optiplex desktop computers. We have slowly transitioned some of the staff to the Dell Latitude laptops, which gives us the ability to essentially pick up our computer and go anywhere and still access all of our documents, Munis, everything as if we were sitting at our desk. So we have to pick up and run to a meeting. We can continue to do our business. So again, this is just an annual program that we have in our 5-year CIP. The next is a generator for the 2nd Street water tower. This, for those of you who don't know, it is a major communications node, mainly in that it basically is the main connectivity to the Beach Patrol headquarters, as well as all of the security cameras on the boardwalk. It also has several backup radio links to other facilities, being the Lincoln Water Tower and the Lynch Wells. There have been a couple times over the last few years where we have had complete outages, which results in call-outs of our staff. During that time, we have to have the water department, their task was sort of bringing a mobile or portable generator to that tower and hook it up to the SCADA cabinet and the communications gear. Reason that we are pursuing a generator is because this is probably one of the few major sites in the city that does not have a generator in place. So when we lose connectivity, we're losing visibility of our critical infrastructure and our SCADA system. So that generator would continue to run that equipment should there be any outages.
It's all diesel?
Yes.
Is this replacing the one that's there, or this?
There is not one there now.
I thought that there was not one there now. Okay. There's a communications building or something? So this is brand new for us?
correct.
Okay.
Next is.
I'm sorry, can I just mention something?
Sure.
One of my pet peeves, and I think some other commissioners, is the cleanliness of the water tower. And I remember hearing how much it costs, and it was $20,000, $30,000 or something ridiculous. But I just want to share with the city manager, I guess, that a lot of us have expressed the desire that be cleaned by every summer or even twice a year because of the media cameras focusing on it all the time.
And it's in line to be cleaned this year. So they're waiting for the weather to maintain a certain temperature over a period of time. We've had some warm enough, but now not a sustained.
Have we ever
kind of
thought
period.
of the fire department just hosing it in between those cleans to, hey, we're paying them enough, you know?
I'm sure the hotel guests would appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it'll just make it wet. I don't think it would clean it,
don't
to
think
be
it
honest with you, yeah. Because, in years gone by, to power wash it, it becomes an issue because now you're creating more pits for that mold and everything else to kind of grab hold of. So we don't like to do that except as a last resort. So last time we did this, we did it with I'm forgetting now, it smells like orange almost when they put it on, but it's more of a coating or a solvent that then kills all of that, and then a couple of rains and it all kind of falls off.
Okay.
And
thank you.
when we were redoing our tower maintenance contract several years ago, you may not have been that may have been when you were off of the commission at the time, but we actually pre-priced a cleaning every year. So if we needed one, we could do it at an agreed upon price already, and then if we didn't need one, we just didn't have to execute it. But we typically have to do it each
Our
year.
original contract with the maintenance company was that they decided when it was to be cleaned. Go figure.
Yeah, right. Looks fine to me, right?
And they decided it didn't need to be cleaned, but every
It looks like
5 years.
looks like Milford's then, right?
But it
Anybody that
is,
drives up Route 1.
we do have the money in our operating budget for it to be
Yes.
cleaned each year.
Yes, we do.
Next is security cameras at the Lynch Wells facility. So that is something that we're continuing to have greater visibility, greater security at all of our critical infrastructure sites. One of the things we did recently was provide security cameras down at our water, wastewater, and garage facility. So this year, we're proposing to add some additional security cameras at the Lynch Wells facility.
Is the intent to have all the wells covered?
I believe so. I would have to talk with Max about that, but yes, I'm sure that's.
Certainly, this one in
his
8
intent.
would be the one where we have the treatment that somebody would,
Yes.
if we lost the treatment for any reason, somebody got in there and damaged it, then that would be more of a problem.
There's a lot of traffic there with people thinking they're turning into Iron Hill, too. So.
So this camera is really aimed at the entry gate?
Yes.
Is that right?
And then finally is a communication equipment refresh at Lynch Wells. So again, this refers to really just replacing older communication gear that connects the Lynch Wells to the 2nd Street and Lincoln Tower facilities, and it just provides essential SCADA monitoring services. So this is refreshing that communication equipment. That was everything for IT. Next is Parks and Recreation. So again, we have in here the Lake Girard Accretion Restoration Project that was presented to you all quite some time ago by Todd Frischman. He provided, again, an overview of that project in addition to the updated costs for that. So we have included that in this year's budget. I know there was discussion at that meeting about how we have pushed this off for several years now, so there was a strong interest to pursue that. So that is in the capital improvement program. Next is replacing the fence at Grove Park. Just a couple photos I took there to give you some examples of the existing condition of the fence. It's in terrible shape. I myself have installed the park mobile signage there, and you drill a screw into it and it immediately falls out. So just something we need to replace, again, for security, but also just safety of Grove Park. And finally, Deauville Beach Tennis Court resurfacing. We've had this in the capital improvement plan for a couple of years and have deferred it a number of times. I just took a couple photos to give you an example of the existing condition of the tennis court. Certainly looks like it could have a good power washing, but gives you some examples of some of the cracks that are in the surfacing now. So this would include resurfacing. I believe it's also going to include repainting of that, the tennis courts to accommodate pickleball as well.
If we keep pushing Bayard landscaping down, is that next year maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
The what?
Bayard Avenue landscaping, we pushed that for the last 3 or 4 years, so 100,000. And is there, I know we've discussed it, but again, I don't know if it's got any traction, is a parks master
Plan.
Is that next year maybe, or?
I don't, Parks Master Plan. I have talked to Liz a little bit about that. I don't know if that is her desire to do it in the upcoming year, but to my knowledge, it's not in the budget, but certainly could be something we look at next.
But just, trying to maintenance of the park, we do that.
Are you talking about the Lake Girard master plan?
No, that's another one. I'm talking about our tot lot, our Turtle Bridge, the several recreational parks we have in town. There's no real master plan. I mean, it came to light when we redid Lake Girard tot lot kind of thing, that we don't really have a plan of maintenance it's more reactive than proactive.
Well, the only reason I ask about it is I have a note from February 18th of 2022. It's over a year ago, Kevin, where Liz was working with a consultant. That consultant was Envirotech for a Lake Girard master plan, and I don't think we've ever gotten a hold of that yet.
That's the one I forwarded you last week or 2 weeks ago, I think it was. It was the Corps of Engineers, Lake Comanches and Lake Silver Lake update, and on there was an attachment of the 2022 Lake Girard master plan.
So is there a budget item buried in there somewhere? I'll go back and look. I'll go back and look.
Okay.
I think the accretion restoration project is part
part
of
of
the
Lake
Lake
Girard.
Girard
Sitting in there?
master
Okay.
plan, yeah.
I don't think it had a price amount, though, if I'm not mistaken. I think
No, just a recommendation that it needed to be done.
Right. One thing I'll add too on the parks, I know that we had recently worked with Bob Palmer, one of our consulting engineers, and he actually did a survey of all of our parks, which is really good information to have going into the Parks Master Plan.
Physical survey, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And I noticed that, if you have other questions, I noticed you've added next year Baltimore, Wilmington streetscape.
Yes.
Is that based on any real data, or how did we arrive at 1 million or more, 9 million, 14? I noticed it goes out even further. but-
Yes,
Which is good.
What is that?
right.
Baltimore Wilmington Streetscape.
That's line 37 in the streets department. So the numbers that we had put in there was, you'll recall that JMT had provided a presentation on their plug analysis as well as the costing. So those numbers reflect that 8% cost escalation. So we put that high end in there. And that was the totality of the project that goes out to 28, 29, 30, 31, FY 31. And I know that there's still some discussion to be had in terms of whether or not it is a project that we are going to pursue, and whether that includes undergrounding utilities or just the streetscape component.
I would just like to see that, we talk about it, keep talking about it, but we have an opportunity, I think, with the Beach Patrol building going forward. We've got 2 new hotels going on in that block of Baltimore Avenue. There's going to be reconstruction there, probably, with construction equipment and everything coming in there, damage to the streets or what have you. It'd be an opportunity at least to look at that one block as a focus or a vision or some kind of an idea that we could say we're moving forward on this, as opposed to looking at all 4 or 6 blocks at one time, do it in a segment. Phase and, working with those developers of the 2 properties, perhaps we can get some buy-in, as we did with the Avenue Inn, for design phase, for undergrounding utilities, because I'm sure that with their balconies, they'd like to look out to the ocean as opposed to power lines. So I think there's some opportunities there, but we need to pursue those. So I offer that up as thought for fodder in that regard.
Commissioner Gossett, am I correct? You have spoken about this before.
Several times.
Yes.
Can't get any traction.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So what is the next step? Since we don't seem to be getting anywhere with your recommendation, it seems like we either tell you that's not going to happen or we decide on a next step.
I think it's,
Is that too direct of how to move something forward?
I thought we had a consensus before of going forward with the Baltimore Wilmington Streetscape. It was money. So that's why if we break it
Yeah.
down into smaller chunks, and we have an opportunity with these other developers in the hotels that, try
Well,
something different.
Because I think if I remember correctly, this is what Mr. Dukes said was a very heavy lift for Rehoboth.
I think that was his phrase, yes.
That is a quote, a very heavy lift.
Very heavy lift, yeah. So I'd be happy to keep my nose out of it or in it, either the way, but I think it's an opportunity we need to look at. That's all I'm saying. And with some fish, cut or fish bait in the sense that, no, it's just too much of a project to take on, and we're happy with what we've got on Wilmington and Baltimore, or we're content. But here's an opportunity that I think, presents us an opportunity.
Or is it a missed opportunity?
Well, we've got, I think it's worth more discussion, but, as far as the capital improvement program, they're skipping this year, but starting the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, they've got funding allotted. Maybe we need to make that
Yeah, but
commitment.
we keep pushing that, as we've done with many other projects. They just keep
Just
pushing
gonna
it
say, we
along.
need to make that commitment. So we need to talk about it, because, look, we go from 1.3 million, 1.1,
Which is a
9 million, 14 million. How much of this is realistic, too,
Well, that's why I say, we've got an opportunity for a small chunk,
Yeah.
Well, I think those discussions need to start happening sooner rather than later on the first block of Baltimore, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So I guess that, as the guy that would probably be trying to put all this together, I think we would probably need some kind of guidance, right? So we said,
Make it
okay,
pretty.
here's the project, right? So we went out and we did the project, and it was, let's say it's $50 million, right? And Bert chokes, and he comes back and says it's a heavy lift. So I've had one commissioner say, well, we're not doing it. If we're not doing underground, and we're not doing it, right? So we've heard that. So I need some guidance. Are we willing to do it over 10 years and do one block at a time, and with undergrounding or without undergrounding? I think really the Baltimore streetscape would best be done at the end of the hotel construction. So we want to know where it's going, but we wouldn't want to do any of it until all those trucks and stuff are out of there.
Well, but I think, if I remember correctly, the Beach Patrol building, that the parking and islands and access runs at least a third of the way, or if not half the way up the block. So there's a turnaround circle and flagpoles and all kinds
Correct,
of stuff.
right, and at least,
Be a quarter.
yeah, right, and at least,
But still.
and at least now, we're saying we don't want to do that until we know what's happening with the hotel. So we would hold that, until that work is probably
But
done.
we have conceptual plans for both properties, I believe. So now would be possibly the time to sit down with those developers or those architects to say, is this real? Is this what's happening? We would like to complement or work with you towards a completer picture.
Sure, and we've met with both of the hotels, yeah, so we know that.
Not on those. with-
Correct, not on the beautification side of it, just
Or
from
functionality, I
and
mean.
access and functionality, right? Being able to get to the driveway, get to the garages, those kinds of things, so.
And I hate to be the new guy to the microphone. Do we have a standardized, have we come up with a design template for what we want to look for? Or is this what's in the initial designs that we kind of got shown? Is that where we're going with it, or has all those questions been answered? I mean,
So we have a pretty good idea.
my
from
thoughts
the
are, have we,
We have a
Yeah.
design concept.
concept?
So maybe.
Yeah,
have
and that's
you
kind of really
share
what
that with-
the next year's design concept, like working with, obviously, I thought it'd be going streets and transportation, right? Or was this strictly here?
Well, there was a
How is
special
this
task force.
Strictly here? Okay.
Right, but I mean, it really came out, I think, to a parking study and a streetscape or a traffic flow. I don't know that there was any focus on design standards. I mean, remembering back when we did Rehoboth Avenue, there were those elements of design and functionality and what have you, and I don't.
And that was not done as part of the concept plan. It was just, we want X wide lanes, we want,
Right.
head-in parking,
Yeah, the
diagonal
design
parking.
would have
We
been
want
the
a
next
pedestrian
step
access
once
way
we
of
said
this.
we're pulling the trigger on
Correct.
this.
Right.
Right. So, if it were to play out as JMT came in and presented it, and as is shown in the budget, that first year would be designing basically the undergrounding of whichever the first phase of construction was. And we had presented it such that we would do the first block of each street as one, phase. So that's how so you get a year of kind of designing the undergrounding for that. They go out, they start doing that undergrounding while you complete the rest of the design that second year. And then the third year, you're into real, construction of doing whatever it is you decide to do, whether it's undergrounding or not undergrounding, whether it's, during that process is where you want wood benches or metal benches and good trash cans, whatever, those kind of things that go along with it.
Yeah, but I mean,
Pavers.
again, not to get too much in the weeds, but for those, they're new, one is a brand-new property, so there's got to be new laterals and everything going in there, so you got to dig the street up. And, if you could do a cost-sharing with those developers on undergrounding utilities, it's just an opportunity to have those discussions. And I think we miss those opportunities occasionally.
Well, what's the flavor? I mean, do we want to do undergrounding on Baltimore Avenue as part of a
I
streetscape
think
project?
what we need is
Yeah.
a meeting with that agenda topic on there, because this is pretty heavy duty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I after receiving that information and getting a $43 to $50 million
Yeah.
project, I've thought, well, maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and put it in front of this group, for instance, whether we underground or not. Now, granted, the Wilmington Baltimore Streetscape Task Force said, don't do it unless you're gonna underground it. But now that we know what the cost is, I think we need to talk about here and say, are we gonna do it or not? Are we gonna clean it up or do some other option? Patrick, you worked with me and Sam on Streetscape #1 Lake Avenue.
Right.
And we gave up undergrounding. And I thought what we ended up with was pretty nice overall, because we got all new telephone poles, all the same uniform height and the same distance from the curb and all that. That.
And I don't disagree with that, but what I'm saying is there's an opportunity here with two major developments in that block.
Oh, I hear you.
That we should approach.
I hear
And
you.
it's
I hear you.
cost sharing, and we didn't have those opportunities on Lake.
And I agree.
it's-
There's a time factor there.
Because isn't it as simple as, tell me, because I oversimplify things, that if the deal breaker is can we or can we not afford to underground? Bert, heavy lift, don't do it unless you can underground. Isn't that the first question? That can we afford it? And in order to answer that question, don't we have to either say, there's no way the city can do it? We could certainly ask the taxpayers if they want to fund it. Or it goes back to the committee to say, okay, we do not believe we can afford this unless y'all figure out a way that we can afford it. And maybe the only path forward is someone, I don't know who that someone is going to have to reach out to developers to see if there's a path forward. I mean, to me, it's just a tree of decisions. And if the first deal breaker is, can we or can we not afford it? To me, that's a starting point. And I don't know the answers.
I think that first question, though, when it was said, well, it's too expensive, that was the entire project. What I'm saying is try to break it down into segments.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Okay, good. I don't know if you did or not.
Right here. I got
All righty, we'll be
Long day here, folks,
We'll be
sorry.
bringing this up.
Back to this specific slide, I just refresh my memory. Do we charge for people to use the courts? What's the process for that?
in the season.
$2 an hour.
And it's free off-season.
I mean, we may want to think about that.
Well, I've said before, I questioned, I guess, two or three meetings ago, the cost of this. It's certainly a lovely amenity, but it's basically a freebie for the people that we do, because this costs us tens of thousands of dollars to maintain it.
But I got a call the other day from somebody who they're just become avid pickleball players, as so many folks are. And they played at Deauville, they played a couple of times, and now they're complaining about the condition of the court. Just anecdotal.
So do we maintain it or do we get rid of it?
Well, if you want to keep the asset, we have to maintain it.
Absolutely.
But I think maybe a new point of view might come in and say, $2 an hour? Really?
Is that true? Were you making that
How
up?
many parking spots could we
$2
get
an
on that land there?
17?
I
We've
played
been
there
told that
two years
before.
ago, and that's what it was.
I don't
Per
think we
person
changed it.
or per court?
17 or 37? It's got a 7 in it. Look in your notes, Edward.
Just going to rely on you for
That seems a little light to me as a former tennis player.
You know, it may
Tennis
have
courts
changed
are
last
open.
year.
7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Rental rate is $10 per hour. So we did have Dave Marshall come in, so I'm thinking that the fee had changed when Dave Marshall came in and started running it.
So we,
Right.
now we're paying a consultant to manage it, so we up the time, okay.
So there's
Had to
a
pay for him.
monitor there during the hours it's open.
Yes.
But it no longer requires a city employee to be out there managing it, which is very helpful from that perspective.
Yeah.
You know, that's
I'm not,
I call that one a win. But if it's an underutilized asset or maintaining a resource or maintaining an asset, it's a cost benefit. What would the commissioners feel as a requirement to offset it for potential revenue? I mean, I think that is a good asset to the community.
How many courts are there?
4.
Four, so 4 times $10 an hour, $40 an hour. And we pay the monitor, what, $20 an hour, so.
And we're looking at restriping, I think, 1 or 2 of them with pickleball and offsetting the sides. So you can actually, with for every tennis court, I think you can get 2 or 4 pickleball courts. Trying to figure that out.
And that was all that we had
Anything
for
else?
capital outlays.
Well, y'all have done a great job. I'm satisfied. Look, we have a balanced budget. I wouldn't know what to cut or the need to cut anything, so I'm pretty satisfied with it. Does anybody want to, remember, we've got to decide at this meeting, or I'd like to decide at this meeting, whether we need another budget meeting. I don't think we do.
It seems to me we've covered all the big issues, and with a zero-based budget, what is there left to talk about? My opinion. Is that too direct?
not for you.
Help me, Kevin.
I
Don't
agree.
just sit there.
Well, then, I'm not hearing otherwise.
I'm all about meetings, right?
I'm not hearing otherwise, so I will not schedule another budget meeting. This will then next be on our regular voting meeting in March for consideration of adoption.
St. Patty's Day.
Perhaps we could use that now free time for the stormwater task force meeting.
You know, I'm struggling. I have to reach back out to all of you again. I'm absolutely struggling trying to get 7 commissioners, staff members, the presenters, all available on the same day. It's just not happening. So my next note that goes out to you with additional dates is going to have a reminder on it that says, I'm not looking for dates that are easy for you to attend. I don't know how to say it, but I'm looking for dates that if you can change at all, then I need to know that, because it's just getting very, very difficult to, you know, have 2 city managers and everybody free for that. So I'm looking now possibly toward the 18th or something, I don't know. The 5th is almost a go, except I've got 2 commissioners that said no, and I haven't checked back with them to see if there's any way they can change something. Now, I understand if you got a doctor's appointment, I'm not expecting you to change that, but if you have another appointment, just going out for lunch with my spouse or something, then I would hope you could change that, you know. So anyhow, I'll be in touch with you. We're ready to go as early as the 1st of April, but it may take a little while longer. And in talking with Jay, we decided that the best bet was to do a special meeting, because we just don't know the duration of the meeting, and we need to.
Are you thinking it's a one and done meeting?
No, Jay indicated, I haven't talked with these fellows, but Jay thought that maybe it would be 2 meetings. And that essentially the objective, according to him, would be, do we want to create a stormwater utility or not, correct? So that's what the presentation's leading to. So we'll see.
Would the 17th in the morning not be an option now?
I've got the presenter that has first dibs, and she's
running the Boston Marathon.
She's running the Boston
She
Marathon.
is literally running the Boston Marathon, the
day.
18th.
Yeah.
So she'll be going on the 17th. So I'll be in touch with y'all. If there's anything else, go to the order. No?
You mind if I take 30 seconds?
Oh, yes,
and
go ahead.
Run through, I just want to make sure I've got some notes, and please back me up, Kevin and Evan. In no particular order, no particular relevance, capture all consulting fees for Planning Commission Board of Adjustments and FY24 expenses, provide separate budget lines within FY25 budgets, so that way. Provide consulting solicitor fees to Board of Commissioners on a quarterly basis, both consulting and solicitors. Make sure we're tracking that one. Review general ledger entries versus project expense tracking. Commissioner request to deny those project costs and expenses. Establish library task force with commissioner member and Alex Burns. Liaison from city staff, is that what we're tracking as well? Or is that going to be a commissioner liaison? That was my question mark.
Commissioner liaison.
Okay. Encumber 75,000 for salaries for, public library employees. Partner entities, all 3 will submit an application in accordance with the contribution policy that we're working on drafting as part of the future budget process. Update all in-kind donations for partner agencies, public library, Chamber of Commerce, et cetera. Legal expenses regarding Canal Dock MOU. I'll go talk with the solicitor. What kind of maintenance expenditures would the Canal Dock require in future budgets? We think we'll get that one for the first couple, but we'll look at what those first couple of years' expenses, linking back to what those project costs are going to be, or what those expenses are, if we can assign certain budget lines or project numbers. Communications Department projects, website, communications module, provide feedback to the Board of Commissioners based off various demonstrations. We have understanding. I think that was Commissioner Chernowski's discussion point. Follow-up email to the Board of Commissioners regarding Assistant City Manager Office and third floor build-out. Look at shrouds for speakers as a potential fixed workaround rather than taking them and moving them up annually. Coordinate residents in Scarborough Extended for the project. Parks Master Plan, not yet, but we need to move forward to that direction. And Baltimore-Wilmington Streetscape Plan phases. I'll say it, assign a project manager to coordinate with developers, builders, stakeholders, and commissioners as we move forward. That's a sooner rather than later, so.
Very good. You know, one thing I just thought of that I think we've brought up almost on a yearly basis for a while is a review of all fees, you know, business license fees and everything. Have we ever looked into anything there?
I had Bert
working.
I had Bert present me what isn't currently in the entire code. He took probably a week or two of research and pulling all the different fee structure. And I'll be blunt, we're all over the map. We got to go back and I was planning on getting with Evan and kind of in his ways as oversight over that department and where we're going to move forward, because he will have oversight of the two that will mostly affect all fees across the city.
Congratulate Bert on pulling it all together
Yeah.
as a first step. I'm amazed.
It was one of those things where I gave him that task, and he's pulling things out from all over the code, and it really, it's difficult to even get your arms around.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't even have all of it either.
Yeah.
He's like, that was after 2 weeks of reviewing all the code. So it's,
Mobile Beach.
So what were some examples of things that we talked about in the past, just to pass on to Lawrence? And we talked about business license fees. We talked about specifically realtor fees. You pay $80 and you get a $275 parking pass, and things like that.
yeah, I can go beach concession fees, bus permits, construction tax, cable, convention hall, hotel accommodation, lease of property, property taxes, property transfer taxes, parking permits, parking permit fees, parking permits fines, seasonal parking permit fee, refuse fees, rental taxes, seasonal parking, valet trash, yard waste containers, and it can keep going. That's halfway through the list.
Yeah, I think we were particularly interested in the mercantile license fee structure.
Yeah.
Which that has that big. That's building and licensing fees, and it goes on for all, like, multiple lines all the way down. It's a rather robust, and we're still not through the entirety of it. We don't even know where to start. I think that would be something to capture it all, and then you would get, once you pull this all together, then you got to go back and re-sanitize the entire code and get it all out, and have it in an annual rental fee or annual fee schedule
That should be reviewed as part of the budget process.
every year. That in and of itself is a heavy lift, to quote Bert. Yeah. If you don't mind, I'll send you this fee schedule, just so you can get a look, because this was 2 weeks worth of
Wasn't also
research.
the E-code review, majority of its issues questioning the fees?
Yes.
But this was step one, I think, of just trying to get as much information as possible, which is not complete yet. So,
Very good. Anything else, anybody?
I'll just mention the other
Lawrence,
do
Evan?
outs I had was we'll include Main Street rent value and the in-kind contributions for the final budget presentation. I'll inquire about a 23 schedule for the Cape Water tours, and once we have that, I'll provide that to you all. And then streets, Big Belly, the recycling on the boardwalk, the IT rental tax software. We'll provide updates, maybe in a city manager's report, on the status of those things, and then cost savings projection on the LED as well.
Sounds good. Anybody? Going. With that, we'll thank you very much. We'll adjourn the meeting at 5:18 PM. Thank you very much.